A glimmer of hope, a date to shoot for, and borderline a plan? That's exciting, I think. If you're a high school athlete, have one in your home, are a coach, enjoy high school sports. February 22nd, you may get events returning to New Mexico. Maybe ProView Networks. Maybe you guys are going to have games to put on the air. High school athletes, maybe you are going to have competitions which to compete. Good morning to you, and happy Wednesday as we get a little bit of good news on this Wednesday. It's the opening drive on 95.9 FM and AM 670 Sports Animal. Jeff Siembieda, JJ Buck dealing with technology will join us shortly. Micah's producing on the radio side. Alden and Josh downtown at ProView Networks to put us on the air so you can watch the show. And you can go to the YouTube page or our Facebook page, the OD and the AM. So yesterday, upon Governor Lujan Grisham's announcement that schools can open in a hybrid manner beginning on February 8th, which is a week from Monday, the NMAA announced February 22nd as a date to start competition, shortened seasons, and the intent is for all sports to participate. That's all sports, including the fall sports, which were canceled. Football, cross country, volleyball, all of those sports have shortened seasons, and then the seasons are going to go into the summer. So you're going to have, look, this is going to be a perfect, and I honestly, I know you're going to call and you're going to gripe, and more so you're going to gripe to me in June when you have to choose between, we didn't have a summer vacation last year, and now we want to take a summer vacation, but stupid high school sports is going all the way through June or July, and my kid wants to play. You know what? First world problems that you're going to have to figure out as a family. I mean, honestly, first world issues, and they're pretty nice to have. The bottom line is it's going to be imperfect. There's going to be no magic elixir that we're going to go back to normal and everything's going to be great again. That's not the way things are going to be. And so as we ease back into some sense of life, and I don't even know that I believe it to be normal, and I don't know what I believe normal to be, but however you want to term it, whatever makes you feel better, at least you've got a date, and it's February 22nd, and that was with the Public Education Department in conjunction with the New Mexico Activities Association. So where are you with this? And I want to go a number of places with this today. Obviously, this is something that you have been, as parents, as athletes, as people, as high school football fans, as businesses like ProView, that a big part of what they do is high school athletics. How do you feel about getting back into this? And are you nervous as far as school starts? I heard a number of parents talking about, look, what happens when school starts? Kids come home with the flu. Kids get sick. Kids bring sicknesses home. Their parents get sick. Are you completely comfortable with all this? And so we'll have that conversation at 505-246-0610. You guys at ProView, and I heard you open up the mic. So, I mean, you guys are really a prime place to go for kind of a reaction, because so much of what ProView does is high school sports. And so I don't know, do you take this with cautious optimism? Was this a big yay moment at ProView? Where are you guys?
I mean, we're with you at the cautious optimism. I mean, we're excited about it. I mean, like I said, that is most of our business there is high school sports. So we're optimistic about it, but I mean, we are holding back, cautious with it. I mean, the protocols have to be in line. We'll have to follow those if they are. Hopefully we'll be allowed to get in there and get those games broadcasted. But I mean, we're along with you, just cautious optimism. It's a first step. Hopefully we'll get there.
Safety of the kids comes first.
Well, it's got you. Safety of everybody.
And everybody who would be involved too.
Yeah, it's the safety of everybody, and that includes your crews who are going to be there and the parents who are going to be at home. And so I think that's where everyone is. No, thanks, guys. That's Josh and Alden, and they're producing for us on the ProView side. And if you didn't know, ProView Networks and Channel 26, they simulcast our show. You can watch it every day if you miss it on Comcast Channel 26 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And you can go to our Facebook page, the OD, in the AM, and you can watch the show there. All right, there are going to be conditions that are attached to this as we move forward, but it's been 10 and a half months And I remember the day vividly back in March where everything shut down. I think you do too. And I was talking to, and really, I'm gonna solicit stories from you all today. How you're, and so many of you have kids, whether it's middle school, high school, youth sports, but I'm sure you recall the day that it shut down. And how long is it going to be, Dad? How long will it be, Mom? We'll be able to play in a couple of weeks. And I think we all thought a couple of weeks later, a few weeks later, a month, a couple of months later, and maybe we all didn't. I mean, I think there was some of us who were saying, look, this isn't going away in a hurry. But there was conversation about how long will this be, but it's been 10 and a half months. And so by the time this comes back on scheduled now, February 22nd, it's going to be north of 11 months. March 14th was the last high school sporting event. And like I said, I remember personal experience, when my daughter, it was the start of lacrosse season. And it was opening day, and she was all fired up because as an eighth grader. And good morning, JJ. It's good to see you. We're good news on the high school front, and I've solicited stories from listeners. I want to know where people are on the news on high school sports being back. But my eighth grader at the time was all fired up. She had earned a starting spot on the lacrosse team, and they were going to Los Alamos, and they were opening up and. It was a day off from school because their school had been closed because of COVID. And we're going up to Los Alamos. We're going to leave at 2:15, and we were headed up. And then about noon, we got word that it had been shut down. They haven't played since. And obviously, my athlete is fired up to go back to school and to play. JJ, I don't know where you are on this. I think cautious optimism as we get to a place where at least now things are pointed towards competition. Things are pointed towards schools reopening. We're not home free. This isn't normal, but at least we're projecting, we're pointing in the right direction.
It finally has some dates put on it, and when I heard what was going to happen yesterday in the announcement, I'm right there with you. It's cautious optimism for all those student athletes that have been through all this. And then you just start thinking it through, the whole thing, just for students to get back to school, and then the other activities that hopefully can come along with this, and the next step after that following athletics. It was good news. It's still, as you said, going to be a challenge, not home free, but now it's finally a step. You're just kind of waiting for the next moment, as we have been with a lot of things, and finally have been able to get here for high school athletics, other athletics throughout the state, and just keep your fingers crossed. Know there's still a lot of work to do to stay safe and healthy, but at least feels like there's a starting point. And as Sally Marquez said yesterday in the video that the NMAA put out, that they are now can put things together to look forward to a finish line for these student athletes.
Yeah, and I think of things like graduation and all of those things that happen in a school year, whether it's your senior musical or your whatever it is you're into. Everything's been taken away from these students. But I'm cautious on this whole thing. JJ, it will have been 11 plus months. The last high school event was March 14th. And I know we had conversations saying, look, guys, this isn't going away. This is real. This is sticking around. We sat and we kind of projected this out and how this was going to go. But I don't even know as we had that talk that we thought, a year. And this is going to be north of a year before we're out of this, obviously. But I don't think, as much as we looked at the possibilities, did you want to believe it? Because I remember saying, JJ, this isn't going away. I mean, look at where this is trending. There's no vaccine. It's going to take however long to get a vaccine. Look at the rate of spread. It's killing people. We're going to be shut down. How do people think we're coming out of this anytime soon? And nobody wanted to hear it. And I'm not sure I wanted to believe it at the time it was coming out of our mouth. I mean, when you say, if we can get these things done, we'll have 11 plus months in the state of New Mexico without a high school sporting event. It's mind-boggling in a lot of respects.
I'm right there with you. I could never envision what happened, what is still happening. However, once you're in it and then you see the results, you see how things go. Okay, this is definitely something that we haven't dealt with before. But I'm right there with you. Back in March when things were shutting down, I remember that final day where we were out at where were we? Yeah, Bernalillo High School, right? For the
Sanctuary?
rounds that we were doing. I was there with Alden, and then next day we were supposed to finish up there and then get ready for the championships in a couple days. And then after that, they put everything to the Star Center, and then they still finished it out the pit. But I vividly remember the last day being in that arena and then getting the call like, yeah, this isn't happening. No one's going to be able to show up. And here we are 11 months later.
But thank goodness there was ProView Networks then, because the state basketball tournament went on, and people were able to watch. Because nobody could go into the building and watch their kids. You couldn't watch the games, but you could watch ProView Networks. I was talking to my mom about this yesterday. I said, as stoked as I am for Addie, and I hope she gets to compete starting on the 22nd. And like they had a captain's meeting for lacrosse yesterday, and how they're going to get at this, and they had cross country, and so everybody's starting to kind of form their little plans, tentative certainly. I'm like, dang, but I'm not going to be able to watch. Like, I'm not going to be able to watch my kid compete, which I'm like, and it's such a first world issue, and I'm well aware of it, and it's mine, and I'm not looking for sympathy, but as you start going through this, I'm like, I can't watch my kid play. I can't watch my kid compete. Well, yeah, that's probably the way it's going to be, but at least they get to compete. JJ was saying as we go through this, I wonder where parents are with this. And I heard on one of the news stations last night, a very, very mixed bag. Kids go to school, they get sick, they bring home the flu. And there's parents who are worried. They bring it home to me, and I take it to my mom, and boom, right? And there's still such an uncertainty and a trepidation on this. And while it seems so easy, yeah, and we're gonna opt for Addie to go on the hybrid and go to school and compete. But it's not an easy decision. And I know there's a lot of families who are in whatever their situation is. It's not an easy decision. Your kid's been in the house for 11 months. Now here's an opportunity, but is it safe, and is it safe for your family? And I'm glad that we're pointing towards starting to do things, but we're not out of the woods, and there's a lot of families who have really tough decisions to make.
Yeah, and goes along to the point of cautious optimism, where you're like, okay, there's a step for the kids. It should be good, but there's still that risk involved, because you're absolutely right. What happens a lot of time when you have a setting with kids, especially younger kids, and washing your hands and this and that, don't put that in your mouth, all this stuff you go through, and we're still living it on a daily basis.
All right. I'd love to hear your thoughts as we go through this today. 505-246-0610 is the Quan's Auto Care hotline, as we're pointing towards, there's now a date, February 22nd, where high school sports in the state of New Mexico will begin under, there's certainly a lot of ramifications and specifications in which they need to meet, and things that have to remain, but we can get through that. We're going to get into, obviously, the Super Bowl and the matchup, Kobe recognitions yesterday, baseball's Hall of Fame. I'm going to tell you why I kind of like what happened yesterday. In some respect. It's the opening drive. Come on in. Emails jeff@610knml.com, jj@610knml.com. Glad you're with us on ProView Networks at 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal.
You've seen Rich
second fielder who's got 4 points. Watson, though, goes all the way.
Hit the deck, I should say. Cordova tried to throw it off Romero. A 3 for
set out to Jutapia. Nice move behind his back. It's a good. Here's Ramos, step back, high arcing, twine.
But he needed to get his leg back under him.
Ooh, a little kick.
They leave it one more time. Two-hand hammer. Up top. Yes, and the finish for Akbayosi. Saved into the hands of Riak. Ahead of the pack to Davina Lovato. Up high, down hard for Akbayosi. Out of the corner, Casals, the 3-0, Katenge! Let me clean up the mess! He dropped out of the rafters for that one, Steve.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Ramos wants another.
Opportunity here. Martinez shoots, he scores. Cut into it. Had some nice looks at the rim. Win. Inside. They're not going to miss this one. Two-hand hammer from Murillo. Ball's played up. Rodriguez with it. Going to settle. Looks to the inside. Comes to the far side push. Shot on in. Goal. Deflected in. No.
Dorian's gonna go all the way. It was blocked by the rim. Get it out, says Kobe Wade. Ramos, get it! Look out. Ramos, can he chase it down? It was a freebie. Saved it. And then stolen. And somehow Hasbury's got it back. Handoff. Watson.
Got a really nice text from the athletic director at the University of New Mexico, Eddie Nunez, on the NMAA stuff, JJ. And he said it's all about hope. Just like we went through, there will be a lot of logistics, questions, hurdles. And as long as they have the right approach and mindset, but most of all, hope, they'll be able to make it happen. Really excited for NMAA and all the kids to have a chance. Understand it'll be hard and some will not feel comfortable, but that's okay. And I think that hit it right on. And thanks to Eddie for that. I think that's really, really, really cool. That he's looking out for these kids. You know, a lot of what he did. We're gonna play a game of semantics here, but a lot of what Eddie did. And I know what he did firsthand from both sides of this thing, from the state side and from Eddie's side, was to unify this. And we talked united. The guy who really tried to unite everybody and go to bat and set a protocol so these things could happen for him, for his student athletes, for New Mexico State, for colleges, for high schools, was Eddie. I don't think, and I've told you this before, and you know, yes, I mean, I'll full disclosure, Eddie's become a friend. But I've told you that I think this university and this community has been so fortunate to have that young man as an athletic director through this crisis. He's been through relocation crisis and things like that at LSU, where they've had to relocate a game, after hurricanes in 5 days and things like that. But what he did to get out in front of this, and the planning and the conversations and the frustrations, and as far as uniting this state, Eddie's done an unbelievable job, and a big part of what they did is lay some of this groundwork for high school athletics as well. And certainly, he's looking out for his athletic department, as he should be. That's his job. But he really went out and had conversations with the athletic directors at the non-Division I universities, as well as with Mario, and has been working since this thing started to find a way back. And that's helped. That's helped the high schools. That helped the New Mexico Bowl. That helped I'm going to tell you, it helped United. And so if you want to talk about who's actually really uniting and working for the greater good, I give that man a lot of credit, because he's not from here, but I know how much he cares about here and what happens here. And a lot of this is happening because of what Eddie did, and I appreciate his sentiment on the high schools today.
In a situation where there wasn't a one-size-fits-all answer to this, and it was going to be challenging, and as we were talking through what was happening with collegiate athletics, given everything that they were doing resource-wise, we figured, all right, why isn't it different? Why isn't there a step forward? Well, you got that step forward, and then you start analyzing everything for high school athletics, and the risk involved in sending all the kids back to school, but then having athletics associated with that. Like, I understand why it took them say, like, hey, we want schools to get going, and then we'll talk about athletics. But to finally just get there, to your point, it's good to have that hope, and it's going to continue to take a lot of work from everyone in addressing these challenges and handling the bumps in the road, because guess what? Things are going to get paused, things are going to get canceled, and then you're still going to have to deal with that and those heartaches. And what are you going to be able to do? We'll find out, but at least now finally there's something to look forward to.
No, I think they're going to have to be flexible. I think they're going to have to be nimble. But at least, to Eddie's point, JJ, they have hope. My daughter jumped on a captain's call last night for athletics and came back with hope. Certainly guarded hope. Certainly, she's like, yeah, we'll see, Dad. But at least she's got a date. She thinks she's going back to school, and she thinks she's got competitions. They've got a plan for practice, elevated practice. Coach has already said, here's how we're going to start. Here's how we're going to start in groups. The captains are going to lead groups, or whatever, okay? But I'm just telling you from my perspective, and I'm going to guess this is going on around the state in homes, that at least these young men and women, these boys and girls, there's hope. And I know it's a word, you define it as you will, but watching what we've all watched, experiencing what we've all experienced for the last 10 months, for crying out loud, JJ, hope is a big thing right now. I hope they play. I do. I think they will. I'm not convinced they will. I think, but I've watched firsthand what it's done, and I know so many other people have. It's what it's done to all of us, and I'll go Mike Gundy on you, right? I've said this a number of times throughout this pandemic. Like, I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm struggling it. You're struggling. Every one of us is in our own way is struggling, but I can handle it the best I can, right? I'm a grown-ass man. It's not fair to expect a kid, I don't care if it's 12, 14, 18, whatever, who's going through something like this, and just say, deal with it, suck it up, city boy, right? It's and the kids, what they're going through, and so to see just some hope and the reaction of the friends and just what I saw on the news. And so I hope to God this isn't false hope. I hope. The fact that we had an announcement like we did yesterday, I mean, we got to play. They've got at this point, to pull the rug out from under them again, to pull the ball away from Charlie Brown again. I don't want to think what that'll be like. right? I mean, if you've gone down this road, giving them a date, and I understand what dictates it. The virus, I get it. But man, for these kids' sake, not just mine, but yeah, mine, but for all these kids' sake, they gotta be able to get some sort of reward at the end of this.
Yeah, you'd love to see at least a couple months of activities, athletics, other groups be able to at least do something, give the kids something to look forward to finish out this year with all the challenges that they've had. And I'm right there with you. And I just keep thinking, too, about the overall process. You know, how many kids is this going to help get back on track? Is this going to just help get them focused? Because it's hard. I've seen a lot of stories on social media, too, from various high school coaches around the country. You know, they're throwing a lot of numbers at you. Hey, I've talked to a bunch of coaches around the city, the community. This is what's happened. This is how many kids we've lost. But there's also the reality to it. There's a lot more kids that aren't associated with athletics that just don't open a computer or don't have the ability to or haven't been able to go to school for 6-7 months, and just a step to, trying to get those kids back, trying to get kids refocused. And a big part of that too for a lot of kids is, well, the reason I'm doing this and working is because I get to play.
I'm getting this a lot. Why now? What's changed? Oh, Biden's in office now, and so now look, the numbers are going down, and yes, Biden's in office. Is it political? Look, I'm not playing that game with you. I'm just not. I'm not. But I got Dan says, what's changed, Jeffrey? Juan Jose and Micah John. Remember, the governor had that arbitrary number of below 168 statewide cases as an average last fall as the benchmark for opening. That hasn't come close to being met. Then it was red, yellow, green with under 5% positivity. That hasn't been met either. So why is it now safe to reopen the schools? By the way, on the day she shut them down last March, because they were no longer safe, I think New Mexico had 3 positive cases that day. It's from Dan. All right, a couple things. Yeah, there was 3, and everybody in the world was freaking out. You knew nothing about this virus. I think it's fair to say we know a little bit more, although we don't know everything, about the virus than we did back when it was shutting down. Why now, JJ? They're telling you that the rate, the studies show that the kids in school aren't being infected at a high rate. Look, why now? I don't know that I've got the exact answer. I've heard a bunch of them. Why now?
Well, there was the CDC study that was released this week, which you can point to. There's also the fact that there's a lot more people lobbying in different directions now too about, all right, what is that next step? We've been through it. We've been through the frustration, and then there's more voices, and also the fact that, yeah, you're starting to see people get vaccinated. And you assume that a next step in all this will be teachers, and then we start figuring out, all right, how that affects the schools. So, yeah, there's a lot more happening now when you look at the overall picture.
Mike said, why now, Jeff Lou? Yesterday, Dr. D. Scrace pointed to studies that those in schools aren't at any greater risk than they would be otherwise. That is not new information. We've known that since July. So why now are they actually acting on this info?
Well, then let's turn it all around if it's not good enough for you right now. Feel better about that?
Yeah, look, because this is when they feel right. It is trending down. Vaccinations are available. But look, there's plenty of people who say, look, they should hold off till August. There's plenty of people who say they should just hold off till next school year. And that's why parents have that option. There's going to be plenty of people who aren't comfortable with this now. And that's okay. If you're a parent and you're susceptible, your child is compromised with health-wise, you've got somebody at home who has got a pre-existing condition and you're not comfortable, you are still armed with the option to go completely online. And that's okay. This is for the families who feel comfortable to go back to school and to compete. Look, there's no easy answer, and I know everybody thinks there is, and the governor's stupid, the president's stupid, or the president's brilliant, or the governor's brilliant, whatever. There's no easy answers to this. And at some point, we've got to progress forward, and they've decided this is the point. Look, I don't know why. I mean, because downward trend, because there's a vaccine, because studies have shown. Okay, I'm listening.
But we know why, Jeff. We're all smarter than everyone else.
I understand that. No, I got it. 505-246-0610, 888-922-0610. All right, when we come back, Baseball Hall of Fame announced the results of their balloting and who, if anybody, will get in this year. Bonds, Clemens, Schilling, all in the 9th year of a 10-year run on the ballot before they go to the Veterans Committee. So what happened? It's the opening drive on 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Dorian over. Did he get in?
Yeah, they got in.
Touchdown, Dorian Lewis.
19 seconds to play. Benavides looking, still looking up the middle. It's intercepted. It's picked off by Freddie Anaya, and Roswell's season will end perfect.
Second quarter, 2nd and 4 for Socorro at the whole 44-yard line. McDaniel trying, good block by Hicks. First down and more, 30, 25, 20. McDaniel might be gone. Touchdown.
Wow.
Touchdown for Michael McDaniel.
It's 40 seconds this year. It's not like 25 like it used to be.
He laterals it back. What a play by Hightower. Pitch.
Looked like somebody moved a little bit early. Hicks, the play fake double move. He's got his receiver wide open. Caught. One man to beat. Touchdown. Touchdown to number 17, Nathaniel.
Third and 6. Big defensive play coming up here. Little trickery to Reese. See you later. Touchdown. They went for the deep ball to Reese.
To the right, single receiver split to the left. Play fake, head up the middle, got some room. 50, 45, 40, has one man to beat. 30, 25, 10, 5, touchdown. Touchdown, Hope.
Wow.
On a
Option again, he'll keep it. Now he'll pitch it. Comes out to the 30, 25, 20, up the sideline. Still inbounds into the end zone. Let's see.
Touchdown.
Touchdown, Portel.
The outside of running an out route.
Davis into the play action, looking. He's going to go back to Lewis, and Lewis makes a cut, and Lewis still on his feet. Dorian Lewis is in for a touchdown.
Back to toss, and he's got all day. It's one miss, and he's rolling, he's got a guy. Can he get it there? Davison to Luke Weissong.
We told you he
touchdown.
Could spin that football, and that was a throw right there. I know he's got the win at his back, but
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
The electors took into consideration the following voting criteria: the player's record, playing ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, and contributions to the team or teams for which the player played. For the first time since 2013, and the 9th time since voting began in 1936, no candidate reached the necessary 75% threshold for election. Kurt Schilling led the group with votes on 71.1% of ballots cast, finishing just 16 votes short of election.
It's Tim Mead. He is the guy who runs the Baseball Hall of Fame. Yesterday was announced, as you heard, that there will not be a class of 2021, or at least not, no, I guess the Veterans Committee can come in. They'll still have their, if they can, their ceremony because they've got last year's class to induct, JJ, which never happened because of COVID. I don't know how you feel about this, and certainly the Schilling Bonds Clemens thing brings into suggestion that the character clause in the criteria the Hall gives to the writers is a reason. I mean, there's no arguing that those three guys are not Hall of Famers on merit. It's the opening drive, Jeff Siembieda and J.J. Buck. So you heard yesterday that nobody hit that threshold. Baseball's Hall of Fame, and you and I have had this conversation so many times over the years. It's a bit of hocus pocus. I think they all are. I don't know exactly what any of the criteria or the voting process are. Schilling 16 votes short, 71.1%. You've got to get 75%. They're both, of the three of those guys are in their 9th year. After 10 years, they come off the ballot, and then it's up to the Veterans Committee for forever. How do you feel when you heard this? Certainly probably not surprised yesterday, right?
No, not especially not with the names that we're talking about. And we start talking about Kurt Schilling. He's a borderline Hall of Famer as is. And then you take into account the back and forth he's had with various writers and everything else that's gone on in his post-baseball life, and it has had an effect on him getting over that final threshold.
He is a conservative voice. And I don't know that, well, this isn't going to be popular, but I don't know that what he thinks politically should matter whether or not he's in the Hall of Fame. And you could tell me, well, Jeff, there's a character clause. Okay. But that doesn't mean if his politics don't fit your politics, that his character is flawed. Now, you can argue that his letter in support of what happened at the Capitol, or his social media posts in support of what happened at the Capitol, should be taken into consideration. But in fact, the voting had already been concluded by the time that happened. He's been a conservative voice. That's why he was taken off of his television analyst job, kind of just over politicizing some things or taking politics too far in the perception of his employer. But JJ, on the Schilling thing, I mean, do you disagree with me? If he's a Hall of Famer, I don't believe his political stance should matter.
I agree with that. And Kurt Schilling, you want to start going down that rabbit hole, it's more like it is not the right way to present it just saying he's a conservative. Like, he's brought up killing journalists before and other things along those lines. So this is not one that people need to hear just, oh, it's because he thinks this politically that people don't like him.
All right. And he has had his issues with writers. And so he is asked to be removed from next year's ballot. He is asked, in his words, for people who are qualified to determine who's should be in the Hall of Fame. He says, whatever mine is, he says, I can say at this point I'm mentally done. I know the trends. I know that I will not attain the 75% threshold. As I've stated often over the past years, to those I've spoken with in my heart, I'm at peace. Nothing, zero, none of these claims being made by any of the writers hold merit. He's asked off next year's ballot. Okay. This is right. What do you think of the Bonds? And, I looked down the list, JJ. I mean, after the top three, you're struggling convincing me anybody on the ballot right now. Scott Rowland, Omar Vizquel, Billy Wagner, Todd Helton, Gary Sheffield, Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent, good players. To me, none of them are Hall of Famers.
Yeah, the whole Kurt Schilling stuff, with that, it's like cry me a river, dude. Like, look at your social media and then get back to me. This is nothing to do with just a certain way you think about politics. But the other guys, it's the major question in baseball of what did you know, when did you know it, and how did you feel about it? And when you go back to Bud Selig, and while steroids were bad, but they were never officially banned, and then we saw everything, the fallout in the 2000s, because when you're talking about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, you can't tell the story of baseball without those guys in the late 90s and early 2000s. And for Barry Bonds, while he never tested positive, I think a lot of people believe he was one of the many guys that probably dabbled in EDs. And it's how do you re-regulate that era when everyone was looking the other way until it all came crashing down, and then you're like, oh yeah, this is bad, by the way. But
dabbled,
probably doing it.
I really wonder what's going to happen next year. Okay, so I got a couple things. I'm down with this. I'm okay. You don't have to put guys who are not Hall of Famers in just to have a class. I watch some of these other Hall of Fames, and there's classes of 8, 10, 12, 14 people. I'm like, well, what are we doing? Okay, and there's this person, and there'll be a class, there'll be a broadcaster, and there'll be a Veterans Committee selection, but sometimes I look at these names and I don't it doesn't bother me. What are we doing? I think in football, sometimes we're in an era where the ballot feels like it's loaded, like there's a lot of names. I'm looking at baseball right now, and honestly, to me, who got snubbed? Nobody. None of those guys, to me, outside from Bonds and Schilling and Clemens, right? And not necessarily in that order. I wonder next year what happens. Did all these writers who held out on Bonds and Clemens, right? All these you did steroid guys and the sanctity of the game and all that crap, on their last year on the ballot, will they vote them in?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? The trend has really been steady. They plateaued right at the 70-ish%. I mean, they don't need a lot more. They need, 5% of the writers. 5% overall. I don't know what percentage that would be of the people who are just keeping them out. I mean, obviously Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens are Hall of Famers. Did they do steroids? Yeah, they did. So now, the people who are in charge are making those decisions. But I'm really interested. I wonder if all right, I've made them pay their penance. Ha 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 ha. I hold the keys. Last chance. I'm gonna let them in. You don't think so, huh?
I don't think they get in, and the Baseball Hall of Fame definitely has the biggest debate in this case. And you're talking about the sanctity of the hall and how sacred the vote is to the writers. Like, yeah, it's a big thing. It's still really important for athletes to be a Hall of Famer. But even with years to discuss, we still have no idea what to do with the quote-unquote steroid era and how to judge it in baseball, because that happened, whether you liked it or not. How then do you start picking and choosing, well, I think this guy deserves to get in, but do you know for sure he didn't do it? No, not really, but I think he didn't do it. And this is why we're where we are when it comes to Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens.
It's kind of crazy. Those guys have been out of the game 14 years already, isn't it? I mean, it's nuts. Now, there's your first, all right, I feel old moment, right? I mean, those guys have been out for 14 years. All right, your thoughts on the Hall of Fame at 505-246-0610. I got a few more thoughts on it as well. You could hit 505-246-0610. Jeff or JJ at 610knml.com, and on Twitter it's _JJ Buck. You trusted your home, your business security to a local company with an armed response. They sold out and you got selected. Now your security is on the brink of being bought out by a national corporate giant. Call Aaron Jones at International Protective Service. That's IPS. IPS is not for sale. They're invested here in our community. Aaron cares about your home, your business security like it's his own. Let the highly trained armed guards or the 24-hour patrols of IPS protect what is yours. Get that sense of security from International Protective Service. I've trusted IPS to watch my home for years now. See their patrol outside on a regular basis. If an alarm goes off, they respond within 5 to 7 minutes with an armed, trained security officer. If you go out of town, they watch your house. They do exterior checks, pick up the newspaper, the mail, roll the garbage cans to the curb and back on garbage day. Give your home a lived-in look. Bottom line is IPS is committed to making Albuquerque and New Mexico a safer place to live and do business. Call IPS, protect what's important to you. The number is 505-897-2420. That's 505-897-2420, or you can visit their website at ipsglobal.com.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Melfi can cash it in. He's got some protection. Deep ball. Erickson's open. Touchdown, Monarchs.
Second and 10. Smith looking, and he's going to fire over the middle, and he's got his guy. It's another big play. Walking away for a touchdown, Tristan Altier.
Hand it off to Chavez. Chavez breaking tackles. Look out. Chavez up the sideline. Stays in bounds. Touchdown. Volcanovis.
That replay.
I got you.
Measurement. I mean,
Smith's got a fire on first down, and he's on the outside. There's a lot of room for Brad Thomas. A move, and he's set free. Dance into the end zone. Touchdown. So it goes.
Run with it. Stumbling. Gets down into the end zone. They're looking to throw it. And he throws it in the end zone. Caught!
First and 10 from the 11. And spin move for Smith. Push the B button. Dance into the end zone.
Throw it. Looking. Here comes the rush. Stepping up. Pavia now running around. Being chased. Looks across. Throws it up and wide open. Ball is caught. Touchdown. Jimmy Gaye. Chavez dropping, looking, stepping up. He's going to run. He's got a lot of green in front of him. To the end zone. Touchdown. Rio Rancho, Isaiah Chavez. Chavez set. He's going to run with it again and dives and.
It's Austin Smith, and to the outside, a lot of room. Look out, a foot race down the sideline. All the way on the first play from scrimmage, Chris. That's a touchdown.
Scrambling. And off, great hit. He bounces off outside. Got some daylight at the 20, the 10, the 5. What an incredible run.
I'll just get a little closer.
Oh, instead it's a gorgeous pass.
Here's what he'll
just shoot it.
He's going to go all the way.
He's gonna fire at the buzzer, and he hits.
Famer, JJ, I'm looking down the list. Like, who's coming down the pike? Who am I looking at that I'm excited about? The Baseball Hall of Fame. After Schilling, Bonds, and Clemens. I didn't even... Scott Rowland. If you'd have asked me if Scott Rowland was on the ballot, I would say why.
Doesn't everyone
honestly
get to be on the ballot?
Okay.
And then if you don't hit a certain number, you're removed?
Of these other 6 in the top 10, Scott Rowland, Omar Vizquel, Billy Wagner, Todd Helton, Gary Sheffield, Andrew Jones, Jeff Kent. Anybody like even tickle you is all right? You can sell me Billy Wagner. I mean, Jeff Kent. Come on.
The only one
like
that's
good.
Float around a little bit is Todd Helton and then fall off.
Vizquel a little bit to me because he was a really, really, really good defensive shortstop. But yeah, that's why I wonder next year. I don't know who's popping on the ballot next year. Is Jeter already in? How long has Jeter been out? Have we already done Jeter? Was he last year's class? I don't even remember. But there's a piece of me, JJ, that thinks that there's going to be a number of writers, enough writers next year, as we hit this last year for Bonds and for Clemens, that are going to come around and maybe put them over the top.
So is that kind of like their "I told you so" moment?
Yeah.
We held you out, but now we're going to let you in. So.
Yeah, but now we let you in. Yeah. Yeah, like the butter guy. Like I've got control. I ever tell you the story of the butter guy? Con Colbert, the former assistant athletic director at UNM under Rudy Davalos, was having dinner with Joe Paterno years and years ago. And Joe Paterno, you get one little ball of butter. And Joe Paterno asked the waiter, sir, may I please get another butter ball? No, sir. Everybody only gets one. Like the butter guy couldn't give Joe Paterno another ball of butter because he had control. He's the butter guy. Matthew, good morning. You're on the Quan's Auto Care hotline. Hello, Matthew.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Excellent. How you doing?
Awesome. Couple things. First, going back to Kurt Schilling, saying it's his politics. It's not his politics. It's his conspiracy theories. And when people believe conspiracy theories, they're either not very smart, they lack critical thinking, or they're gullible. And that's why Kurt Schilling has this thing. And I know that the voting came before. He was great before he said those ridiculous things about the Capitol riots. But he was awesome in the postseason, and he was awesome for several years. He's one of those borderline guys. If he gets in, you go, yeah, I think
that's right.
If he doesn't, you go, yeah, I see that too. Now, Scott Rowland, you look at his numbers and you go, well, he was a very nice player, but he had 8 Gold Gloves, and you got to look at the defense as a third baseman, which has the fewest amount of members in the Hall of Fame. And finally, the one argument when it comes to the steroid thing that I've been saying for 20 years, people say, well, it wasn't against the rules. Well, neither is robbing a bank, but it's against the law, and there's a big difference. It doesn't need to be in the rule book to hinder, you getting into the Hall of Fame. Thanks for your time, guys. I'll hang up and listen.
Great stuff. All right, I'm gonna work backwards on it. Steroids, and so he's right. And look, the guys who have their stance on steroids, JJ, you've been talking about. I think writers are really struggling on what to do with that whole era. And so what to do with it, you've got enough percentage of them who are saying you're out. He's not wrong on the steroids piece. Gambling's against the rules and against the law. Pete Rose is still out, right? I've struggled where I would be. I think I've come around to, I've just got to the point where I don't know that you can eliminate a whole era of baseball from the Hall of Fame. I just don't. And so at that point, I might have held out a couple of years on Bonds and Clemens. But I think I might relent at this point.
Yeah, I think that's understandable as you just try to think through it, and then you start looking back at everything that went down. And Matthew's point's right. Like, it was one that I think there probably was a moment to where they weren't even worried about steroids because they're like, the dude's really going to be buying steroids. Like, who's doing that? You're not going to Walgreens and getting your steroids and then walking out with your bag of gummy bears with it. But then you realize,
they are the gummy bears.
Athletics. And then you start kind of taking a step back and then what it means to sport and realizing, there's a reason why all this does need to be regulated.
Yeah. All right. He talked about rolling in 8 gold gloves, and he's right, which is really good. His offensive numbers are pedestrian. So does 8 gold gloves make him a Hall of Famer? And he's right on third baseman. On the conspiracy theories, all those things he said, that's right. It makes you maybe not a critical thinker. It makes you not. But does that eliminate you from being a Hall of Famer? If you're not a good critical thinker, or if you're any of those things he said in regards to the conspiracy theory, should that eliminate you from being a Hall of Famer? I agree with him. Curt Schilling's a borderline Hall of Famer. I listened to the story one way or the other. Yeah, he had some good postseasons. I'm down that you can tell me his baseball numbers aren't a Hall of Famer. I'm down if you tell me they are. I think he's a borderline guy, don't you?
Yeah, and I think we're seeing it play out in real time just how close he is.
Yeah, but I don't think, because he believes in conspiracy theory, so he's not very smart in your opinion, and he's not a good critical thinker. Does that eliminate him from the Baseball Hall of Fame? I'm not certain I believe those things unless I haven't read the fine print. I don't know that those are qualifications for the Hall of Fame. Continue on the opening drive on 95.9 FM and AM 670 Sports Animal.
The pageantry.
Mahomes is so adept, and he put it right on the money.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Let's get a little closer.
Oh, instead it's a gorgeous pass.
Here's what he'll just shoot it. He's going to go all the way.
He's going to fire at the buzzer, and he hits.
Great pass, Hadbury, and thank you very much.
In the district, inside, fly, Eagles!
Chavez uses some athleticism, and then Morris down low, able to finish. You called it, Steve, in 10 seconds, and look at this, stripped, stolen Watson. Christian Lucero beats the buzzer! Here's Ian Chavez, the sharpshooter, got it.
Could have said that any better. He answered the question. He
On
got
a
another
steal
one.
at the buzzer! Back to back for Chavez.
To the paint. Medina from the volleyball lines. Medina wants another one from deep. Oh, he wants 10. Give him 10!
Lewis finds Watson. He's going to finish. One-handed slam. Vista, but just all the different scenarios we can see potentially play out ahead of the state tournament.
And welcome your conversation on the Baseball Hall of Fame balloting. 505-246-0610. Jeff and JJ. We're on ProView Network, so you can watch us there, and on 95.9 FM and AM 670 Sports Animal. Josh and Alden producing ProView, and Mike on the radio side. JJ, politics are one thing, and I don't believe. Here's the bottom line: you got to know your audience, okay? in regards to the Hall of Fame, your audience, or at least the people who are controlling your fate, are writers, right? That's how the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame, has decided for many, many years. That's who gets into the Hall of Fame, and it's writers, baseball writers. Vote. That's who it is. You don't get to change that. You don't get to choose that. That's how it is. If you want in, that's how it is. Curt Schilling has gone after the writers directly. I believe he said journalists should be lynched. Is that right? Was that his comment?
This is the thing with the Curt Schilling that we have to clear up. It's irresponsible for all of us to look at this story and assume, well, he's not getting in just because he might be a conservative. Because that's bad to do, and it happens way too much. And then you start getting into that rock throwing match of, well, this is what I believe. No, you believe this, so you're the worst one. No, this is, Curt Schilling going down rabbit holes of. You go back to the part on journalists. There was, let me get the date on it for you. So back in November of 2016. So this is the track record. Like, it's a Curt Schilling thing on his social media. He retweeted a picture of someone at a Trump rally wearing a shirt that said "Rope Tree Journalist, some assembly required," and he said, "Okay, so much awesome here." So that doesn't have any.
And again, so you're hoping these journalists who you're suggesting.
And he's not just talking about baseball journalists,
but these are journalists who are part of the journalist family, and these are the people who are going to have to vote you in.
And then he also shared a picture comparing Muslim extremists to Nazis, but in referencing that it's sad only 5 to 10% of Muslims are extremists. In 1940, only 7% of Germans were Nazis. How'd that go? So this isn't just a thing of you can sit there and say, oh, because he's a conservative, he's not getting in. No, there's a track record of Curt Schilling stepping in it over and over and over. And then when you're going down roads like that, you can understand why some people might find it hard to separate Curt Schilling, the baseball player, from all the stuff that he's put out there.
Yeah, look, when you, I don't know if you pick a fight, you accept a fight, maybe you pick it, but when you, I'm looking for the right word, maybe precipitate is the animosity with the journalists, and the journalist, they're you can sit here and tell me they should vote him in on his merit, and by the way, his merit is really borderline. His merit's good, but it's not obvious. Well, then these guys who you want to join with the rope in the tree are probably not going to vote you in, right? When you pick a fight. I told you, remember when Shaquille O'Neal, I think, got into the Hall of Fame, or I remember having this conversation years ago. You make decisions. We all make decisions in life. No, every day we make decisions. Athletes make a decision on what they want their relationship to be with the media. The media is there. The media has changed over time because the athletes don't need the media to get their message out. They've got their own social media. But JJ, we've all dealt, just locally, you and I have dealt with coaches, players who all opt to deal with media differently. I've thought over the years Shaquille O'Neal has been the best I've ever seen at dealing with the media. He jokes with them, he laughs with them, he puts them at ease, and he's been treated pretty well by the media, correct?
Yeah.
Which is an option, a strategy, a decision. I'm not telling you the right way or the wrong way, but it worked for him. Curt Schilling, Barry Bonds, they opted to go a different way. Totally their prerogative. And the media, as human beings, and it's you know me now. It's very rare that I go and defend media because I think our profession has become, a lot of people have become embarrassing, and there's a lot of things I despise about it. But the media has a purpose, they have a place, and it's part of what you do as a professional athlete. And so you have a decision. How are you going to, as a coach as well, you have a decision. How are you going to deal with these people? You want to be an a-hole? It's certainly your option. Are they all stupid because they don't know the X's and O's that you know? Okay, You can treat them thusly. And as human beings in human nature, you're probably going to get treated the same way in return. And if you reach out and treat them the way you want to be treated, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be treated well. And then it surfaces at a Hall of Fame ballot and balloting like this. And Bonds and Schilling opted to be adversarial. That was their option. Now, they're going to tell you at some point somebody wrote something and this is why, and they're, okay. But that's their option. And as we've discussed many, many times, choices have consequences. Here we are at Hall of Fame balloting year 9. There's your consequence. And again, you can make as much of an argument on Curt Schilling is not a Hall of Famer. Well, he had the bloody sock. Yeah, that was a great moment, man. The socks in Cooperstown. But you can make as much an argument that this guy's not a Hall of Famer. The Bonds thing is different, and we're having a different conversation. But on the Schilling thing, look, in this case, writers are the ones who determine your fate in regards to the Hall of Fame. How you treated human beings, human nature is probably going to come back on how you're treated. That's all.
And that's
consequences.
When you get with those guys, too, a lot of their frustration is probably, as we've seen in so many other situations, are you going to go back and relitigate others' careers or take them out because you find out how bad a person is after the fact? But it's also a situation where it's not just, because you're treated nicely, then you're going to turn a blind eye to everything. It's, we've been there, done that with so many of these stories. You remember Lance Armstrong and how adamant he was? He didn't do anything wrong, and all the people he attacked.
Lance was kind of a jerk to the media too now.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like the Ryan Braun situation, where he's like, y'all are wrong, I didn't do anything. Oh, here's a press conference, I'm sorry. Like, so I think that's why there's more to it than just being nice or not, because we've seen plenty of these stories where someone's like, no, I didn't do any of this. You're crazy. How could you be saying this? And then fast forward to their moment of saying, sorry, I got to own it.
Or let me give you a modern day example, because then I want to get into how much should all of your personality, all this off field, off court stuff matter when it comes to Hall of Fame. Tom Brady seems like a nice guy, right? Not everybody likes Tom Brady, but Tom Brady seems like a nice guy. Family guy, handsome guy. Tom Brady diet, 43 years old. If Tom Brady treated the media like Curt Schilling, how would he be perceived? Would Deflategate or Spygate or any of these things be sticking to him more? And will we be having a conversation about his legacy more in regards to those things? Then, well, Tommy talks. He hits every one of his press outings. He's cordial. He doesn't say anything. He's Derek Jeter. He speaks, but he doesn't say anything. He talks to Jim Gray on Monday Night Football here on the radio every week, and he seems funny, and he laughs a little bit, and he's nice Tommy. So people like him, right? But if he was Curt Schilling, now he's getting a lot of flack because he had a "Make America Great" hat in his locker one time. And so somehow, people.
Well, that's gone away on Tom Brady.
It's gone away?
Yeah,
It's really resurfaced in the last 4 or 5 days.
That and Curt Schilling are not the same at all.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. So if he was Curt Schilling, how would the media feel if he treated the media like Curt Schilling? Is kind of my point. How would the narrative be? And I'm here to tell you, I think it would be completely different on Tommy.
But it's also, in a lot of these discussions, did you do anything wrong or not? And the Curt Schilling stuff has gone off the reservation because this isn't just treating the media bad. This is just the story I sent you guys and that we're referencing. It's from 2019, but it's just a track record of this is just so much more than political beliefs. And even because I think there's plenty of writers that are like whatever, because people treat you bad, you have bad interactions, it happens, no one's perfect, and I don't think Curt Schilling spent this is a good question for baseball. Was Curt Schilling that way his entire career? I think it seemed like for the most part
he was adversarial. He was adversarial for the majority of his career. Look, there were guys is Randy Johnson in the Hall of Fame?
Voted into the Hall of Fame not being great to the media. I think eventually over it, but there's so much more in this Curt Schilling story.
All right. So when we come back, I want to ask the question, and I'm really, 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 really interested in this. And I want you guys, if you're listening, to put yourself in a position of being a writer and thus a voter. Not all writers are voters, but being a voter who happens to be a writer for the Hall of Fame. How much should off-field stuff play into Hall of Fame? And you can even, we can have the Pete Rose and Bonds and Clemens conversation, let alone the Kurt Schilling conversation. How much, I mean, again, we've heard plenty, you know, Ty Cobb was a racist. And yeah. He was a hell of a ball player. I got a museum in Cooperstown, New York, which is about baseball, about the greats, the moments, the players in baseball. And this is my thing on Rose. If you're going to tell me that we got a museum that's telling me about baseball, what's baseball? Throw ball, hit ball, catch ball, right? The guy who hit ball better than anybody in the history of the game is not in that museum. How do you tell me the story of baseball? Well, Jeff, damn it, he broke the law. And yeah. He should never work in baseball. But how can you tell me that guy isn't in the shrine to baseball? I want to have the conversation. When we talk these Hall of Fames, how much should it be? Your political thoughts, your conspiracy thoughts, how you treat the media, or should it be what you do between the lines? It's the opening drive. We're on ProView Networks at 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili, breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Let's play it over to Madrid. Plays it across the box off the dasher. It's settled. Shot on by Garcia. Trickles in. Goal.
Chavez blocked at the rim. And here's Dorian Lewis to Watson.
Shot on and just wide. Big deflection. Goal.
With his first field goal. Look at that. That's gorgeous.
Not a game you can go have 25 turnovers in and win.
Get that out of here, Watson says. Here comes Hodnett all the way. He's blocked in return. Dickey, did he get it off? He did, and he hit it. They're really... Oliveras. Wild 3, and it hit.
Another steal nearly by Hidon. It is a steal. Avalos ahead to Hidon. The two-hand hammer by Hidon. I knew he was going to put that one down.
ProView Networks tonight.
District matchup there.
Davidson took it away in transition. Might be time for a jam. Yes.
Oh! Big Barton, watch him, coach. Watch the inbounder.
Dumas Sanchez in the corner.
Back to Barton with 2.4 seconds left. Fires for the win.
And he got it!
It's good.
Oh my God!
On the last second shot.
He did!
Oh
my God!
Bakes it in from 25 feet and watch the celebration right in front of us. What a shot by Barton. He was double teamed and somehow found a way to get it in.
Ramos to Gaxiola. High window for the win. It's good. It counts. Gaxiola with the game winner for a Driscoll Heritage.
Jeremy Segura.
Forward dribble, spin cycle, up and under move. What a pass, wrap around pass.
Harris, Legate, the long bomb, 3 ball.
Oh, great steal by Quinteros, lays it up and scores.
A little jump step in the... And look out, here comes Agbayosi. Crawford set. That's blocked. Lansing says, get that out of here. Sister to sister, Marianne Lansing's going to go all the way. Turnaround. Ramos, pump fake, everyone bites. Ramos hits. Jackson loses it. Taylor Bond back, alley-oop, put it down. Dunkalicious, how about it? Lovato driving. They're going to count it. Gallegos. Ooh, a little spin and a finish. Natalia Chavez, good spin. Takes a...
Here's Ramos. Nice jump stop through the...
Played with the gambling a little bit. Oh, there's a...
Hill, little step, high window, with a... Got the second.
The middle.
Here we go, 3.9. It's Cooper's going to run with it. Cooper's going to swing it out to Lowry. Lowry, Portillo couldn't get it off, and Clovis goes in. It's waved off. He did not get it off in time. Portillo. Reverse layup. Gallegos spins, window, finishes.
There's a run coming from...
Lazy pass. Here comes Crawford. It might be showtime. Damn. To shoot. They'll get one off, and it'll count high off the window.
Oh my gosh.
There's the long three.
Boom.
Bang. Martinez.
All right, so you got a Hall of Fame, and it's filled with great athletes, great players, whatever your sport is. What's the criteria? What should the criteria be? It's the opening drive. Jeff Siembieda and JJ Buck. Micah produces on radio, and Alden and Josh on the TV side. So, JJ, how much? I sit here and look at it, and guys are being left out, certainly on steroids. And I think breaking the law, as Matthew told us, and he's not wrong, and breaking rules is different than personalities. I don't know that I think guys have been left out because of personality. Because of lifestyle, because of you can't tell me Pete Rose is out because of his lifestyle. No, gambling is broke the law, and he broke the basic code of sports. So like I sit here and think, like if the Kobe thing. Okay, let's say the allegation in Colorado was true and it stuck. Would that be a conversation when Kobe came up for the Hall of Fame? Should it be? Should Hall of Fames be based strictly on what you did in the game, or should how you treated the media, what kind of person you were, your criminal record, politics, should any of that also be part of the consideration?
Yes. If it's something egregious, it shouldn't be ignored.
Okay.
I don't know if we've necessarily had that. Now, are there bad people in pro sports Hall of Fames? Yes. So, but moving forward, having these discussions when it comes to, all right, if someone was a jerk to you, it's happened, right? We've all been there. But ultimately, I think everyone is able to move on at some point in time. Whether you have different political beliefs, we all do in certain extents. But if it's something like that you can't ignore, like to the level of robbing a bank, etc., yeah, you should take that into account. I don't think you should just get a pass because you're really good at sports.
All right.
I don't know how many bank robbers happen to be in the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame, but
so criminal activity should eliminate you.
I think we can all be smart enough to look at certain things and say, all right, was there a mistake made here or there that someone can come back from and continue to play their sport and be really good at it? Yeah, but I don't think it's as simple as saying this, boom, we have to be laser focused here, because what if down the line you do have one of those crazy, ridiculous things, even if it's after the fact, but maybe someone's not in the hall just yet, and you're like, well, he did this egregious act, how can we put him in? So I think, yes, we have to be able to analyze it at different levels.
Okay, so, and I'm not sure I totally disagree with you. Since we're talking about Curt Schilling, and I think you and I both firmly agree that he's a borderline Hall of Famer. Could go yes, could go no, probably push him no because of the way he's treated people. What if Curt Schilling had Don Sutton's numbers or Tom Seaver's numbers or Nolan, like just obvious Hall of Fame numbers? Do you think he'd be in?
Obvious Hall of Fame numbers?
Obvious Hall of Fame numbers. 300 wins and won 3 championships and 4 no-hitters and just like third on the strikeout list and just Don Sutton, Tom Seaver, Nolan Ryan Hall of Fame numbers.
As close as he is, I'm sure he would have been pushed over by now.
Okay. So it would have kept him out. Okay. I just don't know who it is that they've ever kept out that my point being, I think for the most part the Hall of Fame ballot voters have put Hall of Famers in, except for Clemens and Bonds. Anybody else? I mean, Biggio's in. Like Biggio was right in the middle of that area. Biggio and Bagwell, this is one that boggles my mind a little. Biggio and Bagwell were nice players in that era where I think everybody acknowledged, yeah, those guys were juicing, right? They don't have near the numbers, Bonds, Clemens, any of those guys. But they were nice guys. They were good to the media. They played in Houston. They did their thing. They shut their mouth. They weren't antagonistic. This is where I am. If you're going to let those guys in, how do you not let Bonds in?
The Gavin Biggio one is definitely, I know we've had this discussion before, is it longevity or actually a Hall of Fame player? And he's one of those guys on that line of, all right, he was good, but is he that
Bagwell
good?
In?
I don't believe Jeff Bagwell's in.
All right, but Biggio is in, right? And Biggio is a nice player. He's a better Jeff Kent in a lot of respects, right? He was good longevity, but he was in that era, right? I just, again, here's guy in Bonds, and here's a guy in Bonds who, what do you do with the era? What do you do with the era? Do you eliminate the entire era from the record books? I got it, man. Poster child for that era is Barry Bonds. You can say McGuire and Sosa too, but Barry Bonds. What do you do? We're going to have a conversation with a guy next who is a big baseball guy, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the voice has to say when we get back. You can get in at 505-246-0610. Gentlemen, I hope the new year's off to a great start. How you feeling? Hopefully you are feeling fantastic, but if you're not, feeling sluggish, maybe dealing with fatigue, low energy, erectile dysfunction, you can take care of it. Call New Mail. You'll feel like you again. New Mail's the leader in men's health. They're here in Albuquerque. They have helped thousands of men all around the country feel better. And right now, what's more important than your health? Nothing. Take care of yourself and make it a priority and call New Mail at 505-652-1688 or visit newmail.com. That's NUMALE.com. The whole process is comfortable. The results are absolutely real from the phone call to your first visit all the way through the treatment. New Mail will be with you. They'll help you take care of low energy, even hair loss and erectile dysfunction. Their testosterone replacement system utilizes cutting-edge technology. They are out in front when it comes to men's health. Call them at 505-652-1688 or visit newmail.com and feel better.
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
Ramos, rise and fire. He's fouled.
You know, he used to coach for Del Norte. And
here's Voss all the way with the finish. He'll get the... Behind the back of the dribble. Tries to go up with the right hand. He changed hands in midair. And Hotnet sent it away. Wynn doing a really good job denying Chavez. BC hasn't got the ball. Oh, Yeku. Oh! Against Watson. Oh, look at the spin move.
Ball's loose. DJ Bustos brings it up. Bars Tompkins, alley-oop. How about it? That was redunculous.
Turnover. Cable to the big fella might try to jam on home.
Creates space. He gives it off to Rivas for the three, and he buries it.
Could be coming in soon. Double quick set for Avalos. Goes to the right. Avalos puts it up high. Window scores, and is fouled. brought here by Lewis all the way, coast to coast, and finish.
What a
around the screen against White. Step back, it's blocked. JB with the block.
In transition, ahead to hit on for the two-hand hammer.
Minutes to go. They've got a shot. They have a chance, and it's put up, and it's good. What a three that is by Jalen.
Hidon puts it up.
Rebound, Cowboys. Right side, David Hall.
All right, good conversation on the Baseball Hall of Fame. So let's go to a baseball guy. Well, he's a football guy and a basketball guy and hell of a golfer. And, well, I mean, he's everything. JJ, I mean, how do you pinpoint? You can't pigeonhole this guy. He is everything, and he is the voice of the Lobos, former voice of the Isotopes, and just a terrific broadcaster. Robert Portnoy joins the conversation. Hello, Rob. How you living?
Man, you landed on thick this morning. Thanks, Jeff.
Well, you are a hell of a
How are
golfer. You are a hell of a golfer.
Thanks, bud. I hope we get some good weather here soon. We can get out. It'd be awesome.
No, I'd like that. Hey, I appreciate you calling in unsolicited on this. This is pretty cool. So obviously, I know you've got thoughts on the Baseball Hall of Fame. Anybody who's been in the game seems like they've got pretty passionate thoughts on this.
Gosh, there's so many thoughts running through my head, Jeff. You know, the Ty Cobb plaque doesn't say that he was generally a bad guy, right? I mean, nowhere on the plaque does it say that he was a racist, he was a bigot, and he was a jerk, and he, you know, all that stuff. It's not on the plaque. And I really liked what you said a short while ago about if you're telling the story of the game at the game's greatest shrine, then the Hit King should be part of the story. His plaque should obviously say that he bet on his team to win when he managed the Cincinnati Reds. That's an offense to the game. It's part of his story. But he's part of the bigger story of baseball, and he's one of the biggest pieces of the story because he's had more hits in his career than anybody else. I thought of something else, too, that since we're talking about character, right? You're talking about the character of these people that we are putting in this shrine for this game that we love so much. And I want to draw an analogy to an NBA player. Scottie Pippen, no one would argue that he is not a basketball Hall of Famer. He is. He's one of the 50 greatest players of all time, according to the game itself. They chose that. But there was a moment in his career where his character certainly came into question. We all saw it on the biggest stage in the NBA playoffs when his coach, after Jordan had gone to do his baseball thing, and Scottie was the man, and his coach did not make Scottie the guy that they were going to give the ball in crunch time in that playoff series. Instead, the play was for Tony Kukoc. Scottie pouted, sat on the end of the bench, and would not go out with his team. I mean, that's egregious. So, anyway, I mean, we're talking about character, right? Is he not a Hall of Famer because of that?
So, should how much do you think character, things like that, should come in? And that's a little different to me because that's competitive character. So that almost tells the story of the athlete. And look, to me, Scottie Pippen's a Hall of Famer. He should be in a Hall of Fame. He made a mistake, and I don't think one moment defines a person. How much should character play into this? Because JJ and I have been having this conversation, and I appreciate you listening. I can't tell you I think there's a guy that should have been an absolute Hall of Famer whose character has kept him out in any sport.
I agree with that. I think that the character flaws displayed by the players that use steroids are keeping them out of the Hall of Fame because their choices, in the opinion, of the people who make these decisions, directly affected the game, right? The comments that Curt Schilling has made, off the field speak to his character, and we can like them or not like them, but those comments didn't affect the game, right? It's about him personally. Again, going back to your point of the story of the game, the steroid era is part of the history of the game. That's right. And the best players from that era should be in the Hall of Fame. And it should be noted that many of them were on performance-enhancing drugs. I mean, that's part of the game's great history and you can look back on it and say it's not so great if you want to. That's your choice. But they need to be chronicled. There's no doubt in my mind.
Robert Portnoy's joined us on the opening drive, appreciatedly unsolicited, and join us anytime. I'm glad you're with us. Go, JJ.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think ultimately we're all kind of coming back to the same thought process on this in regards to there's things we can get through. I'm going to say, like, I guess we haven't seen it yet with the outrageous examples of someone robbing a bank or just doing something to that level of like capital offense, which I think
convicted of sexual assault,
like where we could probably go, okay, we're going to take this into a bigger account. But when we take it down to this level, an era, and really being nice or not to the media, ultimately that shouldn't affect you and your playing career. And yeah, I'm with both of you. At some point in time, you got to tell the story of the game, good or bad, when it comes to the PED era and everything else involved.
Rob, what would you do with Bonds?
For you. Jeff,
Rob,
I have one more question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
What if a player's already been inducted and they're still alive and they commit a felony? Do we take them out?
No.
No, I
mean,
your question.
Yeah, and so I'm with you. What would you have done if you were a voter? How would you have handled Bonds and Clemens?
You know, if you want to make a statement and not immediately induct them because of their indiscretions, I understand that. But they belong in the Hall of Fame. They're two of the greatest players of their era, both before and after they used performance-enhancing drugs. So they need to be chronicled, in my opinion. They're Hall of Fame baseball players, and they're part of an era which, if you really want to separate it out, put those busts in a separate wing and say this is the steroid era. You know, there are statistics that prove that the numbers of the game were distorted for a period of time. Articles have been written about it. Studies have been done. You can pinpoint when it started and when it ended, essentially, and you can make that a separate wing if you have to. But it's got to be part of the history.
I can't agree with you more. There's a part of me that thinks, and I haven't convinced myself yet, but there's a part of me that thinks there's a number of these writers who are going to, because of next year being the last year that they're on the ballot, are going to relent and get them to that 75% next year. Do you agree with that?
That's a great question. You think that they have sort of been holding out in an extended statement, kind of, and now that the final hour is here, they're going to turn and make a decision to vote for them. That's an interesting question. I would not be surprised if down the road, you know, once the players are involved and that Veterans Committee gets into it, that they go into the Hall of Fame. I'm just not so sure that the writers are going to do it in their final year.
Yeah, I also believe, especially in Bonds' situation, Barry was a jerk to the media. And that's his prerogative, right? Everybody makes choices. I think you heard my analogy on Shaquille O'Neal, how he was, you know, he used the media to his advantage. Bonds opted to go the complete opposite way, and decisions have consequences. And I think there's a lot of people who were treated directly poorly. And I've got a number of firsthand stories on Barry that are just not going to give that up and not going to let him in.
Roger Clemens was a jerk on the field. I mean, there's video of him throwing, you know, broken bat shards back at players, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Ty Cobb, infamous for spikes high, blatantly playing the game on the edge of dirty. Does that mean he's not a Hall of Famer? Of course not.
Yeah, but the people who were on the receiving end of that are not the guys voting now, right? All those years you sat there and take crap from Bonds, and now I had to sit there and take his crap after every game. My only recourse is I'm going to keep him out. Like, this is my sword. He threw his swords at me all these years. This is my weapon. And I wonder, I do believe that's part of this.
That's because we're humans. And
exactly.
Those types of things, those slights, judges, whether we want to admit it or not, we do.
Damn, that's good conversation. All right, we'll do it on the golf course. Hey, you got a call tomorrow, Lobos and Fresno State, real quick. Since we got you on, I'm going to burn you on a question now with the Lobos and Fresno State. I know you talked to Coach Weir yesterday about being back in the pit. Tell me what you see. The conversation we've had, Rob, on Lobo men's basketball, give me a reason to be optimistic. What do you see that makes you optimistic?
I think they'll be competitive, Jeff. I mean, I have liked their effort. You know, Coach Ward talked about the defensive effort wasn't there against San Jose State in the second game. To me, I look at that game and think, my gosh, it's the first game that they've really been able to break out offensively, the Lobos, since the very beginning of the year against lesser competition. And that's kind of the way the game went. And so that's the game they played. It didn't work out, but both teams were shooting the eyes out of it. Both teams shot better than 50%. I mean, that's how that game went. Fresno State's not a juggernaut. It's not Utah State. It's not Boise State. It's not Colorado State even. The Lobos were competitive against UNLV, and they were competitive against Nevada. And if you're denying that, then you're not watching the games. I think they'll be competitive this week.
Beautiful. All right. Always appreciate. Hey, check in anytime. It was a really nice surprise, a pleasant surprise, kind of a treat for us this morning. Rob, thanks for gracing us with your presence.
Oh, come on. It was fun being with you. You guys are doing a great job. Thanks, Jeff.
You are too, and you can listen to Robert Portnoy, Hunter Green tomorrow, 8:30 pregame, 9 o'clock tip-off over on News Radio KKOB. It's the Lobos in Fresno State. That was kind of cool, JJ. It was a treat.
Oh, it was. And, of course, the guy that's been in and around baseball for a long time, I'm not as dead set as I'm going to be able to ignore everything. Like I think we're all able to analyze situations and know a difference between maybe someone having a bad character flaw in a moment or just being a jerk in post-game media and something to a more egregious extent. Because guess what? A Hall of Fame is an honor. And you can be great at something and not deserve to be honored.
Yeah. All right. Continue the conversation. 505-246-0610, 888-922-0610. It is the opening drive at 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal.
Don't take
as Javi's looking, and he's got a guy wide open, and it's Gay, and he's going to walk into the end zone. But he did a good job with it. First and goal, it's Chavez to the middle, and Chavez stops.
And Stevens in motion. On the handoff to Mitchell. Look out! Oh, see you later. Take it to the house. Fly, Cardinals fly. To the other side, provide some protection. And off to Webskowski again. Look out. See you later. Good night. Touchdown, Webskowski. Day. He's going to fire to the end zone. Open man, touchdown, Wildcats. Not a defender inside. A little bit. Kowski on the sideline. Hasta mañana. He's off to the races. Touchdown, Clovis.
Albuquerque this afternoon.
34-24 Rancho. Late in the third. How about this run? Nice play. Dickerman, he's still on his feet. Touchdown, Wolverine.
Exactly what they want to get yards.
He's going to go for it. He's got a guy towards the end zone. It's grabs. Touchdown. What a play.
long here for the Storm. Handoff to, we're going to fake the handoff, excuse me. Davidson on the deep ball, he's got some space, and it's caught! Still on his feet, touchdown, Storm! Wow. Santa Maria!
And so they'll send one deep and returnable at the 2. Usually Volcano do either a reverse or a fake reverse, and here it is a reverse. And a move to the outside. There is a lane. Look out! Shot out of a cannon. Rodriguez is going to take it all the way. Moreno extra pass, and Watson. Out with it, Gallegos, and he's gonna run all the way. Window, yes! Able to get out of it. How did he find Battle? It's to Cunningham, and it...
I mean, Ramos' hand. And
Ramos puts it up, beats the buzzer!
Boy, Jefferson wide open.
Jefferson to Daraji! Into Watson with the jam!
Another steal by Davino Lovato, and here comes Agbayosi. Lob, two-hand hammer. You knew that was coming. Heck about the lob, tag by Osi, the one-hand hammer.
Put up. And a drive from Palm. Second field goal, he's got 4 points. Watson, though, goes all the way.
Lobos, Robert Portnoy, and JJ Alden just made 2 really solid points during the break. And we're talking about the Hall of Fame conversation. Rob asked the question, if a guy's in the Hall of Fame and then he does something illegal, egregious after he's in the Hall of Fame, do you take him out? And my immediate answer was no, and I think you feel the same way. Do you feel the same way? No?
I think, what are we talking about him doing?
Well, to Alden's point, O.J. Simpson is still in the Hall of Fame. They didn't take him out.
But was he convicted of it?
He was not, but he was convicted of whatever he was convicted of.
Honestly, though, if there's a situation, like, I can't sit here and ignore something like that, man. Like, if the Hall of Fame wants to make a decision to take someone out after the fact because, you know what, they ended up doing something terrible like that, so be it. Like, if we're sitting here telling this story, is that not part of a story, especially if something happened during... But
you're erasing the story. So if you take him out of the Hall of Fame, if you want to add to his plaque, to me, you want to add to his story, that's fine.
Yeah,
O.J. Simpson was the first guy to ever rush for over 2,000 yards.
You can't ignore it. Like, you can't...
Okay.
This shrine is not going to be perfect. It's not going to be clean. But I can't sit here. I'm not going to put murderers in the Hall of Fame. I'm not voting. Like, we're talking capital.
But are you going to take him out? Are you taking him out?
I would.
Okay.
Like,
right.
I'm not.
That's okay.
I don't care if you're good at football. You do something like that in life, you don't deserve an honor. Like, but I think that's the level of, okay, now we need to consider, like, this is just a really bad person. But ultimately, Kurt Schilling just being a tool and not even like because we've discussed, it's not just he's a conservative. There's just more stuff there. It's just a mess. When it came down to voting on something like that, ultimately, if I believed he was good enough to get in, I'd vote him in as a Hall of Famer, because I think that's, to your point of, are we taking it too far and discussing things about just how you might feel someone personally versus an egregious act a said person might have committed.
See, I wouldn't take O.J. Simpson out, but I would add to his story, because he was still the first person in the history of the game to rush for 2,000 yards. He's still a part of the story of football. If I'm telling the story of football, I can't eliminate his story of football, because post-football he murdered people. But I would add to his story. Alden also said, and it's a great point, on Bonds, on Clemens, on whoever, the PED era. Baseball let it happen. Baseball didn't test. Baseball allowed it. After the strike in '84, they allowed it to happen. They celebrated that home run season. They allowed this to happen. How does baseball keep them out? Edward, thanks. I know you've been holding a while, and thank you for holding. Good morning.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good content. I thoroughly enjoyed every part of the conversation. You're right, baseball allowed it to happen. And why did baseball allow it to happen? Because popularity was waning, ratings were going down profusely, and they needed a surge in their game, and they absolutely turned a blind eye to it. Then they want to cycle back and hold everybody accountable. Let me tell you, I try to hold myself to standards and principles, and I have a fascination with history. Having said that, as the precedent, baseball needs to get over themselves. They're trying to be the moral authority. They're trying to be the moral authority for the Hall of Fame. You know, I just was quickly thinking about the Hall of Fame in different sports. Paul Hornung won the Heisman Trophy, won championships with Green Bay, was involved in a huge betting scandal with the Green Bay Packers. It was suspended from the league, got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1986. Lawrence Taylor is the greatest defensive player I've seen in my lifetime in the last 50, 60 years. He admitted that being on coke on the field, on drugs, was rampant off the field, and he's celebrated as the greatest defensive player in the history of the game, in my opinion. Jordan was suspended for the league for a year and a half, almost 2 years. We don't even know why he was asked to step away to go play baseball, really. And he's celebrated as the greatest basketball player in the history of the league. Dennis Rodman was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. You want to play moral authority, right? Barry Bonds is the second greatest baseball player of all time, in my opinion. Right after you say the name Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds had a Hall of Fame career before any kind of drug, steroid use, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens was incredible, a dominant pitcher for 2 decades. And I agree with JJ. There's some precedents. You have to have precedents. But these guys playing the moral authority, your first caller had some very good points, and I appreciate his perspective. He absolute great points. But to the layperson fan, they think that baseball needs to get over themselves. Not the true diehard baseball fans, right? Which, by the way, is a dying breed as generations are going to pass.
But obviously, there's very passionate baseball fans. People who love that game love that game, man.
Well, I agree, but they need to, in my opinion, humbly, you need to get over yourself and not try to be the moral authority and just document, right? And I'm not saying open the floodgates. Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player in the last 50 years. He needs to be in the Hall of Fame. So anyway, just thought I'd share that with you. And the subject content is awesome, guys. Great thanks, job this morning.
No, thanks. So a couple things. I'm not telling you who the moral authority thing. I don't know that I believe Barry Bonds is the best player since Babe Ruth, but that's a whole other conversation. I think we're at a point where we've come to an agreement. You can't tell the story of this game without certain people. Barry Bonds' story needs to be told. Now, I think where we are with the problem of him telling it is he's not admitted to anything and nothing's been proven. I think we all think we know. The Bonds thing is kind of an outlier. We know, but he has never admitted it. And so can you say factually and tell his story? So what do you do with him? I don't know how you tell the story of baseball without him and Pete Rose.
And just everything that happened over the last 20, 25 years in the game of baseball, going back to Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, everything that transpired in that regard, and now we see Mark McGuire back in the game. Of course, Alex Rodriguez. You know, those guys have admitted to it, rehab their image. And
Right.
to your point, Barry Bonds is still the one sitting there going, "You ain't got nothing
Wasn't
on me.
me."
I ain't gonna tell you a darn thing." But and I'm with you. It does have to be acknowledged. I think ultimately, if the ballot was sitting in front of me, I'd vote for these guys. But we're also are talking about extreme cases, which I'm sure there's a couple of that people can bring up. But like I'm going to still say there are extreme things you can do in your life where you could be great at a sport, but I wouldn't vote for you as a Hall of Famer.
That's fine, and I respect that. I absolutely respect that. Absolutely do. And that's why you've got hundreds of people voting that they come at this with different perspectives, different thought trains on this, and that's the beauty of the diversity of that, the thought process where everybody isn't the same. The Bonds thing is different. We know about Pete Rose, right? It's all he's finally admitted it. We know what's there. We know about A-Rod. We know about Bonds, and we think we know. Bonds is the one guy who's like, nope, all these other fools did it, but not me. Really? Yep, I used to wear a 7 1/8, and now I wear an 8 2/3. My head size, my hat. That had nothing to do with all right. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe once Bonds comes clean, maybe he gets in. I don't know, but we're out of time. And I wonder what some of these writers are going to do that have been holding out. Now that you're going into the last year, will they let him in? Again, tell the story. Tell the whole story. But to me, if you're going to tell the story of the game, guy who hit more home runs than anybody and the guy who's got more hits than anybody are not in the place? You want to tell me he can't make money in baseball? He can't manage? He can't? I'm listening. That's where I am. 505-246-0610. It's the opening drive. We're on ProView Networks at 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth that's real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Ramos wants another.
Opportunity here. Martinez shoots, he scores.
Got into it. Had some nice looks at the rim. Win. Inside. They're not going to miss this one. Two-hand hammer from Murillo.
Ball's played up. Rodriguez with it. Gonna settle. Looks to the inside. Comes to the far side push. Shot on aim. Goal. Deflected in. No.
Dorian's going to go all the way. It was blocked by the rim. Get it out, says Kobe Wade. Ramos, got it. Look out. Ramos, can he chase it down? It was a freebie. Saved it. And then stolen. And somehow Hasbury's got it back. Handoff. Watson.
Strip. Callejon stripped him. The Highland the other way. Win up top to the big goal. Here he comes.
For the lead. Got it.
What a great game plan. Look at this.
Agbayosi throws it down.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Passes it ahead, wants to play give and go. Cut off by McAvoy. 2-on-0 for the Bruins. Over the line, right side, Smith into the right circle to Krejci to Smith. He scores! Craig Smith with 11 seconds left in overtime wins it for the Bruins 3-2. The Boston Bruins have now reeled off wins in 3 consecutive games as they pick up another 2 points and up their record this year to 4-1-1.
That was actually pretty good stuff last night. Bruins and Penguins at overtime. Penguins missed 2 breakaways. I mean, flat out breakaway, me and you against the goalie. Missed twice, hit the post, the crossbar once, and then the Bruins score with 11 seconds to go and win the game. It's the opening drive. Happy day to you. It's a Wednesday on 95.9 FM and AM 610 The Sports Animal. However and wherever you are joining us, we got JJ Ryan's watching the show on ProView in Texas. Ralph's listening in San Diego. I got a surf report. I mean, we are in at least 3 time zones right now. And going from the coast to Texas, and we appreciate you being with us wherever it is you are. 505-246-0610. That's how to get in, 888-922-0610. Your emails come in this morning, Jeff at 610knml.com, JJ at 610knml.com. We've been having a conversation about Hall of Fame, who gets in, character, who doesn't get in, what should be your criteria, what shouldn't be criteria, what should keep you out. I just, with Baseball Hall of Fame having 0 new inductees with the voting that was announced. And so I got this email from Ralph, and he says, if the Roids guys are held out of the Hall of Fame when Roids were not against the rules and baseball turned a blind eye, all baseball management and executives during that time should be held out as well. By the way, lots of stories about Ruth, Mantle, etc. from the old days, playing drunk. Oh, and P.S. the surf is 3 to 5 with offshore winds, but the water's dirtier than the Rio Grande after a chemical spill. They get a lot of rain, so they got to wait till tomorrow to go surfing. JJ, that's the other piece that is not discussed by these writers who are keeping them out. The bottom line is baseball let it happen. They did. Yeah, these guys, it was against the law, as Matthew said earlier. He's right. It was against the law. It was against the rules, but it wasn't really enforced. Everyone was doing it. Well, if everyone's jumping off a bridge, are you going to jump off a bridge too? Well, okay. If you can sit there and if you're so secure in yourself, and maybe you are. I'm down with you if you are, and I respect you because I'm going to tell you you're better than I am. Because I cannot look myself in the mirror and tell you that, JJ, if I was a baseball player in the 80s and 90s, and I looked at the guy next to me and he's rubbing the clear on it, and I'm watching him go from an average player to a guy who's making $8 million a year. And I'm like, damn, I was better than him, and now he's better than me, and he's making more money, and his career's solid. I can't look you in the eye and tell you I wouldn't do it. I can't. If he's doing it, and he's doing it, and he's doing it, and he's doing it, and gosh, I know I shouldn't, but they're all doing it. I can't tell you that I, with all honesty, I wouldn't have done it. And so I'm not going to sit here and be self-righteous. That's how I judge it. Baseball didn't police it. Baseball allowed it to happen. I get it, man. You made your point on Bonds. You kept him out for 9 years. Like, at this point, to me, and that's just, that's me. I think he's in.
It's the story of an era of baseball. And Portnoy brought it up. There are studies. You can dramatically see differences in performance. There's plenty of individual players that we can point at. And, not all these guys are Hall of Famers. Like, just because you use steroids doesn't put you in a Hall of Fame. Because there's plenty of guys that had a year and then went away. It's a discussion of, all right, the standout players in that era, the no-brainers were like, well, this was the most fun dude to watch. This was the most impactful player of this era, and that's what we're having the discussion about. And I think the Barry Bonds one is a little bit deeper. As you brought up, some of these other guys, they admitted it, and they've kind of rehabbed their image. And Barry's just kind of been off doing his own thing, hasn't talked about it, probably never will talk about it. And does that factor in at all? It absolutely will be, because to everyone's point, ultimately, we are human. But in discussing this era and getting away from my extreme when it comes to the Hall of Fame voting, ultimately, yeah, I'd be voting most of these guys in that were standouts in the era, but also acknowledging, like, when you go to the Hall of Fame, it's not just busts. Like, it's not just a giant room of people's heads. Like, it tells the story of the game. Well, I've never been to Cooperstown. It'd be a fun one to go to.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to Canton, Ohio. And you walk in, and it's not just a bunch of people's heads, and you walk out. Like, this is where the game started. These were some of the big storylines. Like, this is the equipment, etc. And so before you get to that room with all the people's faces, which you walk in there and you're like, wait, who are these people anyway? Because you don't know half of them that are in there. There's the Mitchell Report. What happened? You could probably walk in and you could have clips of 30 for 30s playing when it comes to Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. But it's telling the story of the game, because it's not all Skittles and rainbows with any of this.
Yeah, yeah. And take the yellow Skittles out, and they're even gooder. And I know gooder's not a word. I think we've come to an interesting point on this. And I'm down. Grady, I'd love to hear your thoughts. 505-246-0610. That's where Grady got in. Good day, sir. How you living?
Nationwide weather reporters of the OD and the AM. I'm living pretty swell. How about you guys?
Still got some snow on the ground up there in the village?
Oh, yeah, a little bit of snow and about
me too.
9 degrees right now. So, it's
chilly.
a winter wonderland up this way.
That's chilly.
Yeah, it is. It's a little cool. So, yeah, you guys have made some real good points. And let me talk about Bonds first. And, Jeff, your point about if you were an up-and-coming player, you probably would have done them, and hey, I put myself in the same boat. And what I don't like about the judgment of the steroid era, because a lot of it is the eye test. A lot of it is, well, look at that dude. He went from here to here and here to here, and there were some positive tests, but there mostly weren't. So who's to say that all those pitchers that Bonds went up against weren't on steroids?
That's correct.
Who's to say that all those defensive players that made plays when he hit balls weren't on steroids? Steroids didn't necessarily make you an instant Hall of Famer. So if everybody was up there, and JJ even mentioned that, not every player in that era was an outstanding player. That's right. So there's no discernible way, with the exception of a positive test here or there, to say who was and who wasn't, and to simply vote based upon what you think and what your eye tells you, the eye test, that is a weak, horrible, terrible argument, and that, to me, shouldn't keep Barry Bonds out of the Hall of Fame. Now, transferring over to Pete Rose, so Pete Rose broke. It wasn't an unwritten rule of baseball. It wasn't an unwritten code. It was a in-the-books rule.
Yep,
If
it's
you
everywhere
bet on
on
baseball,
the wall.
you will be banned for life, period. And to your point, well, if you can't tell the story without Pete Rose, well, you can tell the story of Pete Rose. You can say, look, our all-time hits leader of this great game broke the cardinal rule that he knew about, that everybody knows that was on the books, and that's why he's not here. And you can celebrate his accomplishments, but it's two different things. And so I agree. I agree that you can't tell the story without Pete Rose. You can't tell the story without Barry Bonds. But the two, it's not the same case of the two. And I'll end with this, because you guys have had some great points. I don't need to rehash everything. I find it funny, I mean downright tickled, that someone who advocated, quite frankly, violence and murder against people who disagreed with him politically is now crying like a little toddler that he's not being rewarded because people disagree with him politically. Like, seriously? And I think the ultimate test, and you guys have said it, and I agree with you 100%, Kurt Schilling is not a surefire
That's right.
Hall of Famer. He's borderline. He's close, well, maybe. And the old Dan Patrick line, if you have to guess, if you have to think about it, then they're not a Hall of Famer. And ultimately, I think that's what will keep him out. It's not his extremist views, and what J.J. said can't be understated. But, you know, what he is isn't mainstream, so that can't be understated or overstated enough. Excuse me. But it's going to be ultimately his numbers that keep him out, and it should be the numbers, quite frankly, that put Bonds in. So.
Hey, let me go backwards real quick. I want to ask you one question. Difference between Bonds and well, there's a lot of differences between Bonds and Rose. Rose finally came clean. He had nowhere to go. He came clean. Does that make a difference? Bonds has never come clean, right? Rose finally admitted, yep, all right, I did it, I lied. If Bonds comes clean, does that make any difference to anybody?
It might make a difference to a few writers. It's like, okay, well, he finally admitted it. We always knew it, so now we'll reward him for telling the truth. You know, and then I kind of would lean towards what Edward says. I mean, it's kind of funny these guys are the moral authority when, you know, there's all kinds of things rolling in and out of there. But I don't think it makes a difference with Pete Rose because, okay, you admitted you broke the one rule that was on the books that everybody that you knew, and it was okay. Yeah, we know you did it, but it doesn't change the fact that it was a rule and the consequence of a lifetime ban.
Yep.
And
Let me ask you this: is Pete Rose a Hall of Fame player?
Absolutely, he is. But should he be in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I disagree with you, but I respect your opinion on that. I disagree with you, but I respect that. All right, man.
Appreciate the time, gentlemen.
See you. JJ, I firmly believe Pete Rose is going to get in posthumously. I think that there's a strong throng of people who feel the way Grady does, and I'm not telling you they're wrong. I feel differently. That he cannot get in. He broke that rule, and that is the holy grail. And I respect that to some degree. And then when they just do not want him to have the satisfaction. They know how bad that man wants in. They know what it means to him to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think more than anybody living, being in the Baseball Hall of Fame means more to Pete Rose than anybody else. And they're not going to give him that satisfaction.
Is he mentioned in a Hall of Fame?
I believe there's memorabilia in the Hall of Fame. I think that he got the hit that broke Ty Cobb's record when he off of Eric Shao is in I think the ball's in the Hall of Fame. I think there's memorabilia in there. To his point, you can tell the story. To me, I get it, but as a player, he's a Hall of Famer. You can say he can't make a living in the in baseball. He can't be in baseball, and that's my feeling. But I respect where Grady's coming from. I just disagree. 505-246-0610. We'll get back to your thoughts when we get back on the opening drive on 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal.
Don't sacrifice quality of flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Dorian over. Did he get in?
Yeah, they got in.
Touchdown, Dorian Lewis.
Seconds to play. Benavides still looking up the middle. It's intercepted. It's picked off by Freddie Anaya, and Roswell's season will end perfect.
Second quarter, 2nd and 4 for Socorro at the whole 44-yard line. McDaniel trying, good block by Hicks. First down and more, 30, 25, 20. McDaniel might be gone. Touchdown.
Wow.
Touchdown for Michael McDaniel.
It's 40 seconds this year. It's not like 25 like it used to be.
He laterals it back. What a play by Hightower. Pitch.
Looked like somebody moved a little bit early. Hicks, the play fake double move. He's got his receiver wide open. Caught. One man to beat. Touchdown. Touchdown to number 17, Nathaniel.
Third and 6. Big defensive play coming up here. Little trickery to Reese. See you later. Touchdown. They went for the deep ball to Reese.
To the right, single receiver split to the left. Play fake, head up off the middle, got some room. 50, 45, 40, has one man to beat. 30, 25, 10, 5, touchdown. Touchdown, Hope.
Wow.
On a
Option again, he'll keep it. Now he'll pitch it. Comes out to the 30, 25, 20, up the sideline. Still inbounds into the end zone. Let's see.
Touchdown.
Touchdown. Portell.
The outside of running an out route.
Davis sending a play action, looking. He's going to go back to Lewis, and Lewis makes a cut, and Lewis still on his feet. Dorian Lewis is in for a touchdown.
Back to toss, and he's got all day. It's one miss, and he's rolling.
He's got a guy. Can he get it there? Davison to Luke Weissong.
Hey, we told you he
touchdown.
could spin that football, and that was a throw right there. I know he's got the wind in his back, but
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
Let's see if Melfi can cash it in. He's got some protection. Deep ball. Erickson's open. Touchdown, Monarchs.
Second and 10. Smith looking, and he's going to fire over the middle, and he's got his guy, and it's another big play. Walking away for a touchdown, Tristan Altier.
They're going to hand it off to Chavez. Chavez breaking tackles. Look out. Chavez up the sideline. Stays in bounds. Touchdown. Volcanovis.
that replay to
I
just
got
get
you.
the measurement. I mean,
Smith's got a fire on first down, and he's on the outside. There's a lot of room for Brad Thomas.
I'm not sure I thought we'd do a full day, but I'm glad we are on this Hall of Fame topic, and it can go to any Hall of Fame. Josh is just bringing up some points, the hypocrisy of baseball. Don't cheat, but we kind of encourage cheating. We almost celebrate Phil Niekro sticking around throwing spitballs and doctoring the baseball for all those years or whatever it is, or stealing signs, right? Do you think by the time their career is over, any of these guys that were involved in this Astro thing, this sign stealing thing, are going to be held out of the Hall of Fame because of that year? Do you think that's like let's just say Alex Bregman goes on, or Jose Altuve, any of these guys have sick careers?
I can't believe we haven't gotten here yet.
Are we gonna have that conversation?
Yeah, it's along those lines, right? It's right in there of, all right, you did something illegal, you've admitted to doing something illegal, and how much is that going to weigh on you? I think ultimately, looking at this, I think those guys will get in if Springer, Kluve, Correa, Bregman, etc. go on to have a great career.
It's interesting. Tommy, what thinks you? Lay a little truth on us. You're on the Quan's Auto Care Hotline. Hello, T Squared.
Hey, what's going on? Tom, the truth back at you. Let me explain cheating. And let's look at everything just in life in general. If you work at a radio station and you make a mistake and you're fired for, let's say, 30 years and you can't get in, do you deserve a second chance, depending on the offense, to get another job, correct?
I think so.
I think so. Okay, if you go to prison for 20, 30 years and you get out and you serve your time, do you deserve a chance to get gainful employment, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Pete Rose has been in Hall of Fame prison for about 30 years now. Okay, he made a mistake. He should have acknowledged it from the start. Like Andy Pettit, I love the way he did it. He acknowledged he took HGH from the start. No one even talks about him no more.
Right.
Jason Giambi did the same thing when he got caught. He admitted it. So
But they're not the
he should have admitted
caliber.
from the start. Yes, I made a mistake. Maybe he would be in by now. But he has served his time. Enough is enough. People make mistakes. They deserve a second chance. Unless he's off doing crazy stuff afterwards, which I haven't heard too much. And he's not like he killed anybody. He murdered someone. He made a mistake. It's been 30 years. And you can even go into football with, I've heard so many different quarterbacks that they used to deflate the balls back in the day to get certain specifications of throwing it with
That's
Brady.
right.
And the deflate gate, and then in the Colts game is when he got caught, and they gave him the proper balls in the second half. He still scored 21 points. Doesn't
right.
matter. And filming of plays, that happened too back in the 70s and 80s. People weren't getting caught back then. It happened. People have done it before.
So, Tommy.
So it's like, I don't want to hear all that stuff. People deserve a second chance, especially if they've served their time. And I think Pete Rose has served his time. Kurt Schilling, if you don't want to be, I guess after this one, he said he doesn't want to do the Hall of Fame count. He doesn't care anymore. Well, that's fine. I don't think he has the stats to get in.
I agree with that. Let me ask you this. Hold on, because I agree with you. Right, you and I are on the same page that Rose has done his time that he should be in. But if you're going to use the analogy of you go to prison, you get sentenced, is there an equivalent of a life sentence? Right, if you do certain crimes in society, you can get a life sentence. What baseball is telling you is breaking that rule. Gambling on your games is worthy of a life sentence. I mean, can you see where that is? Because I don't think I agree with that, but if you're going to use that analogy, I think that's where that goes.
A lifetime sentence, unless he did something outrageous to hurt the game in general, to hurt the game, or murder, which he didn't do.
Yeah, but you don't get to decide that, right?
I think it's an offense that has to have a certain period of time, but I don't think it should be a lifetime ban. 20, 30 years, that's enough.
You and I agree with that, but I think baseball's saying it's a lifetime sentence. And you and I agree. But if we're going to use that analogy, baseball gets to decide, where society makes its rules, makes its sentences, decides does the punishment fit the crime. It's where baseball's deciding here. You and I both disagree with them, but if we're going to use that analogy, I think that's where they're going.
Well, I think baseball needs to really look at that in a different way and just decide, what is a certain amount of time where someone can get paid. I mean, you can't coach a team, you can't manage a team, you can't be involved in baseball. I think that's enough. But the Hall of Fame, I think he served his time. I think he should be able to get in the Hall of Fame.
Right on, Tommy. Good to hear you. Thanks.
Good to hear you guys, too. Bye.
See you. JJ, like Tommy and I agree, but if we're going to use that analogy, baseball gets to decide what punishment fits the crime, right?
Yeah.
It's their game. So, Michael, who'd you tell me is next?
David.
Let's go to David. Hello, David. You're on the Quan's Auto Care Hotline. Hi, David.
Tommy's using a false analogy. Murder and ultimately the Vic example in the NFL, you've done your crime, you've done your time, you go on with life. Ultimately, that's a false analogy because it's an apple to an orange. The idea is the policing of a sport ultimately supports the sports. All this argument about unwritten rules is a better example. You don't flip the bat. You don't show disrespect. That's a better example that's more analogous to what you're talking about. Saying you go out and commit murder and then you've done your crime like the dogfighting guy from Atlanta turned Pittsburgh Steeler.
Michael Vick.
Yeah. The more appropriate thing is USADA, U.S. Anti-Doping Agency. Armstrong said USADA didn't have jurisdiction. Ultimately, a company came out to help Armstrong defend himself against defamation of character, which France, from back in 1999, said they had positive tests. All these talk about positive tests. The question in baseball is, was baseball allowing and testing for steroids?
PEDs,
For example, the analogy now is they don't test for marijuana. So they've ultimately allowed for marijuana like the NFL. A better example would be Marion Jones, who ultimately got stripped. And the kicker is she was never proven to be testing positive. She was connected with Balco. And Balco was the connection, and USADA, U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, went after Marion Jones just because of the connection and that logical strain. But Lance Armstrong was given a lifetime ban, and then he later defended himself in a sport that you think steroids is rampant in baseball. It's more
it's more
prevalent in
rampant there.
cycling for
That's
strength and endurance and blood
That's right.
doping and ultimately a lot of things. But that said, lifetime bans ultimately reinforce the attempts to reinforce the rules. What I'm getting to is Froome, an English cyclist who had no connection with cycling, banned drugs, substances, whatever. He was associated with doping because by that time, Jan Ullrich, who ultimately kept on becoming behind Lance Armstrong, was also doping. The argument was, well, Armstrong's doing it because everybody's doing it. Froome was never connected, but the association was, well, everybody in cycling is doping. Froome from Britain ultimately never tested positive, but he was tainted because the sport had become
he was in the era.
polluted with drugs.
Yeah, I get it. All right. No, that's good. Thanks, David. The association, boy, there's a lot there, and it's a little bit apples to oranges, too. But, yeah, the association. Look, I don't know if the argument there was Bonds didn't do it or you've never proven it. I mean, is there anybody alive, including Barry Bonds' kids, who think Barry Bonds didn't do performance-enhancing drugs when he was playing baseball?
It's probably very few.
I mean, honestly, does Barry believe it? Do his kids believe it? And I almost feel at this point, JJ, there's no shame if you did steroids playing baseball in the 90s. Did you find that to be shameful? Do you look down on any of these players who do? Like, at this point, I get it, and I remember going through it, and oh my God, how can these guys do it, and all the self-righteous crap.
There's definitely shame involved. But because then you wouldn't, like, why would people go through admitting it and talking through it?
No.
If it wasn't weighing on them.
Look, I get that they're feeling it.
If 85%, 87% were doing it, you still did something that it took us time to get our heads around.
Okay,
and now,
but here we are.
Yeah. So, yeah, there is still shame involved, which is why so many players probably haven't said anything about it to this point.
JJ, do you look down at any of those guys from that era? Do you look at them and do you look down at them? Do you think any less?
That doesn't mean it doesn't weigh on them.
Oh, okay, two different conversations. Yeah. I can see where it would weigh on them. I can see where they have their second thoughts, and we all do, looking back at what we did when we were 20-something. But at this point in life, like I don't think there's any shame. If we're sitting in our seat, if you're a voter for the Hall of Fame, I'm struggling at this point looking down on anybody from that era, because if you're that good of a person, and you can look at me and say, yep, no way in hell would I have done it, and you believe that, all right, good for you. You vote the way you want to vote. But to me at this point, sitting here in 2021, and to look back at a guy in 1991 or 1989 that was doing PEDs because the guy next to him was, and the guy next to him was, and what they knew, and everybody like that, I'm just not going to sit here and be that damn hypocritical and self-righteous.
No, I'm with you in being the moral police. I think at some point in time we do have to acknowledge, and I think everyone's gotten around to it. You know, the Hall of Fame is still an honor. Like there's still some things we need to talk about, and just because everyone else was doing it, I think it's easy from our standpoint to say that, like, we feel differently about it. But there is a reason that so many of those guys fought against it. So many of those guys sat in front of Congress and was like, it wasn't me.
I get it.
Absolutely. There's, even with more people accepting the era there's still a shame in it for a lot of these players because there's so many that haven't acknowledged anything outside of the ones we're talking about, even just for Hall of Fame candidacy.
You're right. You're 100% right. And in the same vein, I've evolved to the point of my thinking. Okay? I'm not telling you I'm right. It's right for me. Because I was on that whole back. I remember in the 90s, oh, my God, how can they do this crap? I'm over it. Baseball allowed it. I will argue with you baseball encouraged it. And you cannot eliminate a whole era. And I'm talking about a 20-year period from the history of a game. You got to acknowledge what it is. At least I do. I'm not telling you what you got to do. I do. And move on. More conversation on the other side. It's the opening drive on 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal.
I'll just get a little closer.
Oh, instead it's a gorgeous pass.
Here's what
Hill's gonna just shoot it.
He's going to go all the way.
He's gonna fire at the buzzer and he hits.
Great pass, Hadbury, and thank you very much. Tie in the district, inside, fly, Eagles.
Chavez uses some athleticism, and then Morris down low, able to finish. You called it, Steve, in 10 seconds, and look at this, stripped, stolen Watson. Christian Lucero beats the buzzer. Here's Ian Chavez, the sharpshooter. Got it.
Said that any better. He answered the question. He
On
got
a
another
steal
one.
at the buzzer. Back to back for Chavez.
To the paint. Medina from the volleyball lines. Medina wants another one from deep. Oh, he wants 10. Give him 10.
Lewis finds Watson. He's going to finish. One-handed slam. Vista, but just all the different scenarios we could see potentially play out ahead of the state tournament.
Played over to Madrid. Plays it across the box off the dasher. It's settled. Shot on by Garcia. Trickles in. Goal.
Chavez blocked at the rim. And here's Dorian Lewis to Watson.
Shot on and just wide. Big deflection. Goal.
With this first field goal. Look at that. That's gorgeous.
Not a game you can go have 25 turnovers in and win.
Get that out of here, Watson says. Here comes Hodnett all the way. He's blocked in return. Dickey, did he get it off? He did, and he hit it. They're really. Oliveras. Wild three, and it hit.
Another steal nearly by Hiron. It is a steal. Avalos ahead to Hiron. The two-hand hammer by Hiron. I knew he was going to put that one down.
Care about the Hall of Fame anymore. Here I was thinking that it just didn't matter.
No one cares.
That it was some antiquated old guys thing, that it just doesn't matter anymore. And here we are 2.5 hours later, it's still talking about it.
You remember when the mobile Hall of Fame rolled through? That was
actually really cool. Yeah, I took Addie to that. That was over there in the parking lot by University Stadium. What was it for? Was it when the Isotopes had the All-Star game here? Is that what it was? Or it was just like a rolling Hall of Fame?
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
picked
was
it up
cool.
and moved it to the next city.
JJ, you talked about going to the Hall of Fame. And so my mom took me when I was 8, maybe 7. And I've been back since. And I've always kind of made it a priority. Every time I go back to New York, I'm going to drive up to Cooper's. I never have. But it's one of those trips that I remember detail from when I was 8. Like of all the trips we took, and it's funny, we just found some little drum from Lake George up in the Northeast somewhere when I was a kid, and Addie got it upstairs. But, I don't remember that trip. But I remember the Cooperstown trip because I was such a baseball junkie too when I was a kid. But yeah, that you talk about going up there. That place is so impressive. All right, we'll keep it going. I got emails that I got to read to you on the Hall of Fame. I know Howard wants to talk about it. Let's go to the Quan's Auto Care hotline. The number is 505-246-0610. Hello, Howie.
Good morning, guys. Hey, I just have to start off before I talk about the Hall of Fame and say I got the greatest boss in the world. He lets Old Edwards lets me take a few minutes to call in the morning between work.
Don't.
What a great boss, huh?
Back signal. Yeah, that's nice of him. Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to say something. Is it just me, or do I feel like NBA and the NFL Hall of Fames are a little watered down? The voting process in the Baseball Hall of Fame makes it a little more difficult to get in. Am I on track there? What do you think?
No, I think it's always been that way. I just think, honestly, what felt watered down was just the names on the ballot. Howard, I think it's always been difficult. I think it should be difficult to get in. I don't know whether I understand the process or I ever have. But I don't feel that the process is any more watered down or different. It's just, it felt to me like the names that were on the ballot. JJ,
Well, I think to Howard's point, there's a lot more debate about non-sports related issues with baseball than with football and basketball.
Good point. It's not for me to decide, obviously, but I think the Hall of Fame is better off without Curt Schilling. And going to it, the steroid area, I'm indifferent to those guys. I really am. Because I'm with you, Jeff. I think if I see a guy next to me increasing his earning potential, 10 times, I can't say I wouldn't do it. And and down to Tommy the truth. You're talking about Tom Brady and inflated footballs and videotaping and everything. Then you want to talk about Pete Rose in the same breath. Well, I don't know. And again, maybe I'm offline here, but Tom Brady is a cheater. Pete Rose broke the rules. I don't know if I'm straddling a fine line there or not, but I don't believe that Pete Rose ever affected the outcome of a baseball game for his monetary profit. But Tom Brady cheated for his monetary profit. So I don't know. Do you guys feel, is there a difference between cheating and breaking rules? I think there is.
Well, define cheating.
Cheating is willingly breaking
the rules
to affect the outcome of a game.
By breaking the rules?
Baseball,
by breaking the rules, right? Cheating is all those things you said by breaking the rules.
Well, yeah, okay. I
hence, it wouldn't be cheating. if you're getting a competitive advantage within the rules, then it wouldn't be considered cheating, correct?
Well, you're correct. I guess so, but I just feel like Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. That's
I do
the
too.
whole point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
You know, if I want my grandson to look up to a baseball player, I want him to look up to Pete Rose, not to a type like Curt Schilling. I mean, Curt Schilling believes, you know, in things that I just don't believe in and I think are pretty egregious. And, you know, why can't Pete Rose be pardoned and allowed into the Hall of Fame? Outgoing presidents hand out pardons like they're M&M. I mean, why in the heck can he not be in the Hall of Fame?
Because the president can't
open. Today, guys.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks for
Thank
taking
you.
my call.
Because the president doesn't have jurisdiction over the Hall of Fame? It's a great point. So he's saying, was his argument that what Tom Brady did was more egregious than what Pete Rose did?
It sounded like it.
Yeah, and Tom Brady, by the way, when they found it at halftime, they went back to fully inflated footballs, and he still went off and went crazy, right?
Have we tested the footballs this year? Has anyone made sure that we're not dealing with that situation again?
You know where I feel. I think Deflategate is the most overinflated scandal in the history of sports. I do. All right, I'll read you one, and then I'll get more when we get back. 505-246-0610. Terry says, steroids in the Hall of Fame. I was watching live when Hank Aaron hit home run number 715. I was watching live when McGwire hit 62. After the 94 strike season when the World Series was canceled because baseball was in the dumpster, in my opinion, the McGwire-Sosa home run battle brought baseball back to the limelight. I was rooting for Sosa. Was naive to what was going on. If Bonds gets in, so be it. Didn't watch either time he broke the records. My favorite Bonds story was when Jim Rome would keep going over how Bonds couldn't throw out Sid Bream, ran like Todd Brady, from deep short. Glad to hear different opinions. Yeah, that was in the World Series when he was with the Pirates. They're not in the World Series, in the NLCS. When he was with the Pirates and Sid Bream came running around third. Sid Bream was slow as heck with the Braves. Bonds couldn't throw him out. So, man, you got a lot of conversation on it, but it's good. I don't agree that what Brady did was nearly as egregious as what Bonds did, but well, that's why we have conversation. It's the opening drive. Keep them coming on 95.9 FM and AM 610, the Sports Animal.
That ball stolen. Jeremy Segura.
Forward dribble, spin cycle, up and under move. What a pass, wrap around pass.
Harris, Legate, the long bomb, 3 ball.
Oh, great steal by Quinteros, lays it up and scores.
A little jump step in the...
And look out, here comes Agbayosi. Crawford set. That's blocked. Lansing says, get that out of here. Sister to sister, Marianne Lansing's going to go all the way. Turnaround.
Ramos, pump fake, everyone bites. Ramos hits.
Jackson loses it. Jalen Bond back. LAU. Put it down. Dunkalicious. How about it?
Lovato driving. They're going to count it.
Gallegos. Ooh, a little spin and a finish.
Here's Natalia Chavez. Good spin. Takes a.
Here's Ramos. Nice jump stop through the.
Maybe gambling a little bit. Oh, there's a.
Hill, little step, high window. And
Got the second.
To the middle. Here we go. 3.9. It's Cooper's going to run with it. Cooper's going to swing it out to Lowry. Lowry. Portillo couldn't get it off, and Clovis goes in. It's waved off. He did not get it off in time. Portillo.
Reverse layup.
Gallegos spins. Window finishes.
There's a run coming from
Lazy pass. Here comes Crawford. It might be showtime.
You said Barry Bonds dabbled in steroids. Terry says, when JJ brought up that Bonds dabbled in steroids, it's like Charlie Sheen dabbled into cocaine or Hugh Hefner dabbled in young women. Enjoying the show, lighthearted about dabble. Yeah, you were being facetious. I understand. He dabbled. One of my favorite parts about doing this show, JJ, every day is I just don't know where we're going. I didn't know that we were going to, Portnoy was going to call in unsolicited and we're going to get all this conversation on the Hall of Fame. And I'm glad we did. I think this was solid, actually. Really good conversation on the Hall of Fame. And there's a lot of opinions out there. And it reinforces to me what I thought, that despite popular belief, people do care about the Hall of Fames or Halls of Fame. And there's passionate views on Bonds and Rose and all these, and Schilling, obviously. And it does matter to people.
Yeah, it does, and especially for athletes, that still is an incredible honor, and being a first ballot Hall of Famer does resonate to these guys. And when there's not a set criteria with a lot of things, it opens up for debate. And then what are you willing to accept, what are you not willing to accept, and especially baseball, because they're still trying to figure it out, because you played the game, from the 90s and early 2000s one way, and then all of a sudden it was like, that was terrible. We can't do that. Shame on all y'all. But it still happened, and now you have to figure it out.
Yep. Fred, I know you got thoughts on this. Good morning, Fred. How you living?
Hey, this has been a great show for me today. I love baseball the most of anything, and it's just been great to hear everybody talk about the Hall of Fame. And the thing about Schilling that's so strange about him more than anybody else is, his first 4 years, just a young kid pitching for Baltimore, and I think he lost 9 games and won 4 games or something like that. And so those are 4 wasted years. You're counting as his 20-year of pitching, and then he probably had 4 or 5 more years that he was hurt and didn't pitch that much. So he only had about maybe 12, 14 really good years, and he didn't win 20 games that much when he was with Arizona, that's when he was the greatest, probably 22-6 and 23-7. So he had a strange season. The only thing that he did more than any other pitcher in baseball ever is the postseason. He was 11-2 and had a 2.23 ERA, and he just pitched great in the playoffs. It was just one thing, and then of course everybody remembers the blood on his ankle and stuff. But I mean, I don't know if he's going to get in next year or not. Of course, he doesn't even want to be put on the ballot. But I just want to say one thing. Next year, you didn't mention this. The first thing you said is about next year, but there really isn't that many players. But there's two guys that'll be eligible next year. Controversial, probably more than anybody, is going to be Rodriguez, but he's going to be eligible, and then Ortiz is going to be eligible. And so it'll be interesting next year to see what happens with them. But if you look at all the rest of the names, there really isn't anybody for next year. And I think they're just lucky this year that Jeter and Walker, them are going in, and they didn't go in before, because at least they have somebody going in this year. So,
but
they'll
be able to have a
I want to bring
ceremony.
up about the postseason on him too. So
That's great. No, it's great, Fred. Thank you. So, JJ, it's amazing, right? Almost every other sport, and I say almost every other sport, if we're talking football, we were having this conversation the other day about football and quarterbacks, and it's all about postseason and how many rings, right? And basketball, LeBron's got 4 and Mike's got 6, and baseball, to his point, Schilling was so good in the postseason. Like, if Schilling was up with that sort of a resume in another sport, he's in, right?
Yeah, it doesn't hold the same weight. And I think looking forward, David Ortiz, the back end of his career, he was a tremendous postseason performer. He has an ALCS MVP, a World Series MVP, and Edgar Martinez broke that ceiling for the DH. So I think he's going to be a fascinating case, David Ortiz, next year. A-Rod, man, it's put him right up there with Barry Bonds. Who knows how people are going to react to that one. And then the rest of the list are guys that are good but are not Hall of Famers. So it's going to be another year where there's not a bunch of dudes getting in the Hall of Fame. But as you said, it's the way it should be. There's always good players in sport, but not always great players, because the word great is thrown around a lot, and you have to be great to be a Hall of Famer.
And Fred's point on Schilling's postseason, man, you put him in another sport, and he's in the Hall of Fame. He is, because of what he did in the postseason. John says on Schilling, when I look at Schilling's numbers, I'm just not convinced they're good enough. Sure, there was a ton of strikeouts, but that's over 19 years. And over 19 years, he only wins 219 games. That's not a Hall of Fame number, in my opinion. Some people will say there were some really bad teams in there, but a Hall of Fame pitcher makes sure that at least one day a week, that really bad team has the advantage, and he just didn't do it enough. Real quick, Scottie Pippen is a jerk story, he says. I was 15 years old, the sports editor at Sandia High School. It was the year the Bulls came to play Longley and the Timberwolves without Jordan. I worked hard to get a press pass to the game. At the end of the game, I go back to the locker room area, never having been in a professional environment before. Starstruck, I love the Bulls. John Paxson stopped to talk with me. Bill Cartwright and even Leitner, a Dream Teamer, talked with me. We interviewed Luke earlier in the day. High school media conference. Suddenly, Pippen comes out of the locker room, and here I am, a starstruck 16-year-old high school junior. I flashed my press pass and asked for a couple minutes, and the jerk blew me off. I'll never forget that. He was a really nasty person. Have a good day, guys. See, you never know.
1 minute.
Scottie Pippen was probably just hungry, going to that, whatever, done. He just did his media obligations, but that's what's going to stick with John forever. You never know. Great stuff today, man. This was out of nowhere. This was fun. Thanks for Robert Portnoy. He just called unsolicited, called the show today. The voice of the Lobo. The voice of the Lobos called us, JJ. It's all right. Great stuff, Alden and Josh on the TV side. Micah, as always. Jim Rome show is next. Dan Patrick shows after that. Sports Bar this afternoon at 3. What are you pointing at?
Figure the Zoom thing out. But I have to point the opposite direction to point at who.
Have a good day, man. Enjoy the day.
See y'all.
Be good to each other, please. Be kind, loving, caring, and sharing. We'll smell you tomorrow. Gotta go.
looking, and he's got a guy wide open, and it's Gay, and he's going to walk into the end zone. But he did a good job with it. First and goal, it's Chavez to the middle, and Chavez stops.
And Stevens in motion. On the handoff to Mitchell. Look out! Oh, see you later. Take it to the house. Fly, Cardinals fly. To the other side, provide some protection. And off to Webskowski again. Look out! See you later. Good night. Touchdown, Webskowski. All day. He's going to fire to the end zone. Open man! Touchdown! Wildcat! Not a defender inside.
A little bit.
Kowski on the sideline! Hasta mañana! He's off to the races! Touchdown, Clovis!
Albuquerque this afternoon.
34-24. Late to third. How about this run? Nice play. Dickerman, he's still on his feet. Touchdown, Wolverine.
Exactly what they want to get yards.
He's going to go for it. He's got a guy towards the end zone. It's Krebs. Touchdown. What a play.
And long here for the Storm. Handoff to, we're going to fake the handoff, excuse me. Davidson on the deep ball. He's got some space, and it's caught. Still on his feet. Touchdown, Storm. Wow. Santa Maria.
And so they'll send one deep and returnable at the 2. Usually Volcano do either reverse or fake reverse.